they can join as a panelist in the meeting.
Can you announce their names? Can you announce their names one after? Priyanka, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Or yeah, please start announcing. Yeah.
So
and please tell the rules. Yeah.
So I'll announce, like all the fellows will get 4 minutes to present, and 1 minute will be the comments by our expert, Professor VIBHUTI Patel ji. So the fellows, I'll name the fellows who have the presentations today, and they have to join as a panelist in the meeting. So Pinku Jha ji, Nahin Rehana Prapti ji, Samu Kezi ji, Bikir Kumari Hami ji, पीरजादा मुनीर इस्लाम जी, डॉक्टर अमिता मारवाहा जी, डॉक्टर अपूर्वा दीक्षित जी, डॉक्टर टीना जी, अहाना सिंह जी, आदित्य मिश्रा जी, जानकी अंधारिया जी, ब्लेसी मैथ्यू जी, करोनिका रॉय जी, डॉक्टर श्रेया पांडे जी, अफशीन फातिमा जी, प्रवीण राज जी, भानुप्रिया जायसवाल जी, and Dr. Savita Yadav ji. These are the presentations that are lined up for today, and I request all of you to join as the panelists for the meeting. Praveen Rajji will be the first one to present. I guess you are ready with your presentation, Praveen Rajji.
Yes. Hello. Hi, Faiza. Yes.
Yes. So you will get 4 minutes to present, and then 1 minute for the expert comment.
Okay.
All right. You can begin now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Very good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present, give a presentation on so far that we have learned and you know how our research paper can look like. So I'll just give a bit of brief about why I chose this particular topic, where I'm trying to look at from media perspective. So that goes back to my background. I'm a master's student from Jamia Millia Islamia University in media governance, and post that as I'm currently I'm working as a risk analyst at a management consulting firm based out of Bangalore. So the role that I'm currently at is very much looks at geopolitical events. If I can give you one example, what impact South Korea's little coup attempt could it have on the global economy? So we look at for the businesses or what impact the US elections could have on the South Asia Pacific and for the businesses. But media has always been very much core of my current role and my background. So therefore, I've been trying to look at the media, and this has been my area of interest. Also, look at the media narratives towards the marginalized community, towards the discriminated societies. And when I looked up the fellowship, this is something that draw my attention. So here I'm trying to explore the critical role of media narratives and the gender equity in shaping India's foreign policy. Although we do hear from our ministers and our diplomats that they have been doing very well at the forefront with regards to supporting nations, but we rarely hear them when it comes to representing women at the diplomatic tables. So I'll try to examine some part of feminist lens from media perspective, and how our Indian media has played how much in giving a perspective at the international forum. Faiza, can I request you for the next slide? The research problem and context that I have set for my presentation is, we have learned in previous session also, traditional foreign policy has overlooked the gender consideration. It has failed to incorporate crucial gender considerations, leading to a lack of inclusivity and equity in international relations. There has been limited integrations of feminist perspectives. Of course, there is a significant gap in integrating feminist perspective into diplomatic strategies, which limits the potential for more inclusive and equitable foreign policy outcomes. And from the India's perspective, media's role in shaping public opinion and policy decisions. Of course, we do see Indian media playing at the forefront of political issues, economic issues, but we rarely see Indian media playing at the forefront of representing gender issues, or how genders are being represented in Indian context. We have learned, this has been part of my academic discourse also, that media has played a crucial role in shaping public opinions, influencing policy decisions, understanding how media narrative represents gender issues, which is of course essential for foreign policy, looking it from a feminist lens. Can I request for the next slides? The key research questions that I have framed here is, how do media narrative represent gender issues in foreign policy? These questions will seek to understand how gender issues are portrayed in media, coverage of foreign policy, identifying patterns and biases in representation. And the second question that I'm trying to look for is, what is the correlation between media framing and diplomatic discourse? So many of you may not understand media framing. While back in the days when I was in my masters, we used to look at the media framing, let's just say G News or Way On or Republic Bharat or NDTV, how they are trying to give a frame to a particular event. This is something that can be part of my research paper. I'll try to incorporate more of it. So this question will explore the relationship between media narratives and the languages and the strategies has been used in diplomatic discourses, asserting how media framing influences policy decisions. But so far, if I can give my understanding, my research, and so far my analysis has been with Indian media is that they have been failed to look at the diplomatic discourse when it comes to the gender representation. And the third question that I'm trying to address is, how can feminist principles be integrated into India's foreign policy? These questions will focus on identifying practical steps and strategies for incorporating feminist principles into India's foreign policy, ensuring a more inclusive and equitable approach to international relations. Can I have the next slides? The methodology that I'm going to use will be a mixed method resource design. There is of course quantitative content analysis. So I'm going to look at between a particular time frame, which is 2019 to 2014. The objective is to analyze the print, television, and digital media to examine the gender representation in foreign policy reporting. Approach could be, I'll conduct a systematic review of media content to quantify the presence and portrayal of gender issues in foreign policy coverage. Of course, my intention earlier was to engage with journalists and previous journalists to how they have seen the portrayal of gender in the foreign policy reporting. But I think there are limitations to it that I'll have to address it. In quantitative discourse analysis, my objective here will be to explore the policy documents and official statements to identify gender perspectives and potential biases. Again, there's a limitations to it. I may not get official statements looking at the sensitivity of the issue that I'm trying to address. Approach that I'll try to incorporate will be the speeches that have been recorded, and I'll try to analyze those. And of course, I'll
Praveen
try
Raji,
to do a
we have
comparative
already,
study.
Praveen Raji, you have already exceeded time. I'll ask you
Okay.
to wrap up in half
Yes,
a
I
minute.
think there'll be one more last slide after this. Can you go to the next slide? Yes. So this is my last slide. So the outcome, if my research gets into right direction, I'm trying to expect the outcomes is empowerment of marginalized voices in diplomacy, improvements of power through gender equity commitment, and more equitable international partnership, as previously Ms. Nandita Barua was addressing. If India starts implementing those, then we would see more of gender representation on international tables. And of course, there could be enhanced inclusivity in foreign policy and decision making. Thank you. I think this is the end of my slide. I'm looking forward to the feedback and any input.
Thank you so much. I request the experts to provide any feedback or any comments.
Yeah. Praveen Raji, you have really hit the nail when it comes to media's role in foreign policy. I think we should also include one more aspect of the learnings of the past, no? Because what the role Indian peacekeeping forces had done in Sri Lanka and Jaffna. And after that, we learned also that in Liberia, we said 21% of the army was of women contingent, and whole world applauded their work because they were so compassionate. They were doing hand-holding. They empowered the survivors, and they were doing lot of soft skills which they used, of making the war-torn country, the women and children. So I think that also, that whole evaluation, maybe the state doesn't acknowledge that this was what the women's movement had demanded, and so much of monitoring and the fact-finding committees which were sent to Sri Lanka, and the kind of things which had happened, the very, very cruel and barbaric way in which women in Jaffna were treated. After that, the state also decided to change its policies. So I think, and all that is captured in the media also.
Okay. I'll definitely try to incorporate those, ma'am, those aspects.
I have one more comment, Professor Patel, about, when Praveen was mentioning about
the reports on this, the is also change. Yeah, especially role of women soldiers in Liberia. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
a brief comment, Professor Patel. When perhaps Praveen could also look at the various, the CNN and the Fox, for example, the left and the right wing, the liberals and the conservatives, how they view, because there's a clear-cut differences between their picturing of any particular issue. So if you can clear-cut point out and call out what they do and how they have pictured feminist foreign policy or agenda, so that could be quite interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, especially in the most controversial issues of Syria and Iraq and Gaza and Gaza, and also even Congo and Sudan.
Right.
Even and
thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you, Praveen Raji.
Thank you.
Now I request Pinku Jhaji to start with the presentation.
Namaste, am I audible?
yes.
Fine. So I'll start with my presentation. Before that, I would like to thank IMPRI for providing me this opportunity, which is just first-hand experience to learn about the various aspects about this particular idea of feminist foreign policy, which I never heard it before. Like, it was very limited in my understanding, but now I have learned a lot of things. So the title of my work is An Analysis of Feminist Foreign Policy Through the Prism of Indic Tradition. So before that, before beginning, I'll just want to clear it. Since I'm working on Mahabharata, I'm working on Indian political thought, classical Indian political thought. So I thought of understanding this feminist foreign policy with the help of Indic tradition, if there is something in that particular way. So I'll just before beginning, since I have opted the mode of presentation in a PPT plus the poetry, so I'll just recite maybe 30 to 40 second one small piece of poetry, which is in Hindi. Maybe everyone will understand that, or later on I'll try to make it clear what exactly this is all about. So the poetry is like this. युद्ध नहीं मेरे होते हुए जटिलताओं का हल युद्ध नहीं हो सकता. मैं जानती हूं नगर वधू बन सौहार्द स्थापित करना. मुझे ज्ञात है 64 कलाएं और उनका उचित उपयोग जो युद्ध को टाल सकती है. मैं एक गणिका हूं. काम मेरे गुणों और चरित्र को सीमित नहीं कर सकता. मैं राज्य समाज और संस्कृति को सुसज्जित करना जानती हूं, ठीक वैसे जैसे मैं बनाती हूं केश प्रतिदिन संग कुसुम कमल स्थापित कर जूड़े के केंद्र में. प्रश्न ये है, युद्ध नहीं तो हल क्या होगा? संवाद, समन्वय और सुरक्षा परस्पर. और माध्यम गणिका का बनना कठिन नहीं है इस युद्ध को समाप्त करने में. So basically this poetry is all about how a character of Ganika in Indian literature is being considered as very important which is being used sometimes as a spy in Mauryan history or in Kautilya's Arthashastra. We have found a lot of references from this particular idea. So the main idea is how when we are saying feminist foreign policy, it is all about not just focusing on war, but something beyond that. So can we shift to another slide, please? So the foundation of this particular research is, because there is a research gap, most of the existing studies limit their analysis to the intersection of only two of these variables, either focusing on feminist foreign policy from a Western lens or on classical Indian concept without exploring their applicability to modern foreign policy frameworks. So in international relations, we find two specific very popular assumptions. One is it is considered to be male dominated, not just considered, but actually we find a lot of references. Another one is the Eurocentric notion of this international relations. So this is the base where I have started my research. And next slide, please. So we have four different objectives for this particular work. The first one is to offer an alternative perspectives to Western dominated frameworks. Another one is to highlight the role of significant female characters from Indian literature, history on feminist principles in foreign policy. The third one is to analyze the challenges contemporary nation state face in adopting feminist foreign policy, particularly through the lens of non-Western nations. The fourth one is to highlight how integrating principles of equality, justice, and community from Indian philosophical texts like Devi Bhagavatam, Saundarya Arthashastra, Mudra Rakshas, and some other texts. So the methodology, the next slide, please. The methodology I have used, that is basically textual analysis, case study analysis, and comparative analysis. So this particular picture is of a fictional text called Urnabhi, which actually refers some of the ideas related to how women is being not just women, particularly the Ganika's story is being narrated in this particular fiction, and through which we can understand a lot of ideas that how foreign policy has been considered something like practically it is being used through the help of women character, women protagonists. The next slide, please. The tentative sections of this particular work is the introduction. The second chapter deals with the feminist foreign policy and its global challenges. The third and fourth chapter is important, where I have discussed a bit of classical Indian thought and feminism. Then the fourth one is about Indic feminist foreign policy. If there is some idea which we can say that there is Indic feminist foreign policy, which can be a bit different, but difficult maybe to understand, but I'm trying to find out if there's some relationship. The fifth one is again about the case studies and comparative analysis. As I have already mentioned, certain examples I've found in the literature that I've gone through. And the sixth one is conclusion and recommendations. So just 10 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds I'll take. Proposed area of discussion can be, we can find out a universal idea of welfare has been enshrined in Indian thought and can be promoted through a rational foreign policy. So there is particular contribution that can be highlighted as we have already discussed. So by two important things, one is select characters in this particular whole discussion. We can focus on the character of Amrapali in the Buddhist literature. We can find the Unnabhi that I already mentioned. Example of Vishkanyas in Kautilya's work, the Brihanala in Mahabharata. So these are some characters through which we can find out some important ideas of feminist foreign policy. The last one is the select principles, not just characters, but certain principles we can also focus on. So one is the promoting highest consciousness. When we are talking about the feminist foreign policy, it does not just focus on the women, but rather than a integrated whole we are talking about. So we find it in the classical Indian thought. So then we have the neutralizing war capability, the alliance formation capabilities, cultural, political, and social power that a women or a particular protagonist that already we have discussed, we can find out their references in this particular area. So the last slide is all about the references, a few of the references I have mentioned. So this is all about that I have worked as of now. So I'm happy to have some suggestions and remarks from the team.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive coverage you have had, and especially the Amrapali's this thing, whether it is several people have written on Amrapali's speech, after the destruction and devastation she saw, very moving. But I think you should also go through Therigathas by the Buddhist bhikkhunis, because the Buddhist principle of harmlessness and the ethics of harmlessness, and also rejecting violence in all its forms. You should read Uma Chakravarti's work on Therigathas. Uma Chakravarti has done the feminist analysis of Therigathas, and lot other scholars, also Buddhist bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, have also done. And currently also it is recited. Therigathas are happening. I have been witness to Therigathas in Dharma, in Himachal Pradesh, in Sidbari, in the Buddhist monasteries, where there is the monasteries by bhikkhunis, where they have it, in Dharamshala and nearby places. So I think literature is available. You should even take that as a case study, because it's a very comprehensive treatment to peacemaking, peace building, and no ethics of harmlessness, that is brought from they drew inspiration from the Buddhist principles, and they have the question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
And the whole feminist slogan of personal is political, that you can't talk of only world peace. Peace has to begin from home. No, that was when the world leaders in 75 were saying about talking about world peace. What the rebuttal by the feminists was, peace begins from home. So when you reject any form of conflict, the violence, gender-based violence also is rejected. That comes out strongly in the Therigathas by Buddhist bhikkhunis. Over to Seema, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, for your comment, and also to Pinku ji. Perhaps, you could also look at the Prasangika theory, which I spoke about in my presentation. Again, drawing from the Buddhist thought, that could also be very important. And also, perhaps we could, avoid making analysis from those points or those texts where women are being, used because of their. Yes, exactly. So that should be perhaps avoided, because we need to focus on women's leadership and women's agency and the role in positively contributing, not for other purposes. And also, how about the role of the queens? How did they help, or how did they influence the foreign policy of various of their the kings? So that could be not using their agency in a negative way, but also or not letting their agency being used in the negative way, I would say.
Got it.
And also not controlling, because negative agency comes when you are under control. While in case of Amrapali, you need a tremendous courage of conviction to challenge the king who has won the war. No, so that is a question of agency. Or the Therigatha, the Buddhist bhikkhunis, who gave up everything in life, and then they challenge the whole patriarchal order. No, so I think that's very important.
Yeah, and maybe the vocabulary, yes, by using vocabulary, a positive vocabulary is very important when we are using.
Otherwise, we'll just be continuing with the masculine ideas, even
the patriarchal trap, of patriarchy.
Yes, true.
Yeah, Janki, you want to say?
Can I just say a quick word? I mean, I think basically resonates with what you are saying, is that, when we glorify, I mean, the problem really with reinventing, let's say, feminist principles in the earlier times, I mean, when you are invoking certain elements, we have to be extremely careful about not glorifying the context at that time, which otherwise was highly patriarchal. So I think the discernment is very, very necessary, where you don't automatically say that, oh, that was a golden era for women and everything was fine. Absolutely not. So I just feel very strongly about the fact that one has to be extremely careful when we are reclaiming maybe certain things that were going on selectively. Maybe they were absolutely positive, but we need to have a disclaimer that not all was well with the society at that time. It was not an equal society. I think that's my sort of very strong observation with regard, or word of caution, as it were. Thank you.
Now I request Nahin Raihana Prapti ji to go on with the presentation.
Assalamualaikum. I'm Prapti from Bangladesh, and can you see my screen?
Yes. or it is in working mode, make it a slideshow mode.
Yeah, sure.
We cannot see your screen anymore. Can you share it again?
Yes, yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Let it be if it doesn't. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So my topic was sandwich generation women in Bangladesh, their caregiving stressors, and the feminist foreign policy. So just to introduce, the sandwich generation is a term used to describe adults who are caring both their children and their aging parents. For men, this is more of a financial responsibility, but for women, it is more about their caregiving role. So I am interested in this topic because I myself have been raised by a woman of sandwich generation. So I am just acknowledging my bias here. And Bangladesh is currently going through its demographic dividend phase. So the women's participation in labor force have increased, but the unpaid care work is definitely not being recognized. And so they go through the intense labor, and it's affecting their health, well-being, and financial stability. And what I see is a potential for policy improvement in favor of women here.
Mahianji, we cannot hear you and we cannot even see your screen now.
She's dropped out. Maybe she'll rejoin, maybe connection issues.
Yeah.
You can text her on WhatsApp if required.
She is there, madam.
Can you see it now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just continue.
Yeah.
So this paper is hoping to address the literature gap in the places that has been largely overlooked. So this is an in the existing literature, the concentration was always on women and gender equality, and their or on working mothers. But what I have tried is to look at the intersection of these issues and to explore the socio-cultural dynamics of caregiving and provide a fresh perspective on women's coping strategies, and also to connect the local realities with the global feminist discourse. So my research questions were how women negotiate their roles as caregivers for both children and elderly relatives, how these duties are assigned and how gender norms shape this division, how these burdens influence both their physical and mental health, and how can we connect these challenges with the feminist foreign policies. So I have not extensively brought out the methodologies, but just to share with you, I have conducted almost 25 interviews as I have acknowledged, this was my area of interest before starting this fellowship. And I have, but I'm not sharing my results here. So these are things that are new here, the focus of sandwich generation, their health impacts, and a holistic approach to the caregiving issues, and the linkage to, of local realities to the global feminist frameworks. And now I am trying to connect my results of my interviews with and trying to analyze them with the feminist 10-part theory and taking the feminist foreign policy as you can say that I'm trying to do is trying to connect the feminist standpoint theory and the feminist foreign policy with the issues of sandwich generation women. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Praptiji, for your presentation. When you talk about sandwich generation, I'm sure in that generation, the memories of Bangladesh war must be very, very intense, no? Because now also we have not experienced partition, but my parents had experienced, and we know all the bedtime stories were around partition and the human miseries and so many anecdotal things. So do you think that this service generation's idea about national sovereignty or the relations with the neighboring countries or the globalization, have you included all these issues in your questionnaire? That how, because even it affected, it was an existential reality, no? The kind of trauma that the whole Bangladeshi women had to go through, where the Pakistani army had like attacked them in a very extremely barbaric manner, and so many women were sexually violated, and so many became homeless, and so many were thrown out, as we told that they were, though state called them Virangana, society did not accept. Their children are still not accepted by them. So all these issues, do they they play important role in their formation of ideas of foreign policy or the relations with the foreign countries?
Ma'am, as my sample size was very small, and the age limit I have tried to connect was 18 to 40. So they not necessarily have or those memories directly as they were born, or like they were not directly, they didn't directly experience those issues. So it's more about the globalization and other facts, especially at the workplaces.
Yeah, because most of them, all the important global brands, I was in Dhaka and I saw almost all global brands were being produced in Bangladesh. And it was the working class women from the Bangladesh. They were the ones who were working for the multinational and transnational companies, no? And it is the cheapest labor, which is found to be in in Asia rather. Bangladeshi labor is supposed to be the cheapest, and women's labor is supposed to be the cheapest in whole of Asia. So that's why you have so many multinational and transnational companies, especially in the garment sector. They were there. Or Bangladesh's policy of sending for migration, the deal which Bangladesh signed with the Middle Eastern countries, that they would accept one male migrant only if he's coupled with a one woman migrant, because the Arab countries have a shortage of domestic workers. So the woman would work as a domestic workers and man would be absorbed in the oil industry and all. So have you gone through this kind of diplomatic relations, whether it's a trade relations or the migration policy, and about which lot has been written, discussed and reported in media? Are these
especially the women who are
on
migrated like in Saudi Arabia or other Middle Eastern countries? Most of them are being violated, and we have recently seen in the white paper that has recently been published that the policies are not women friendly regarding migration and other issues, and let alone about the childcare or other things that are necessary for women to work. So it has been a complicated issue, and hopefully there is a potential, and I see an urge to change. So let's see. I will try to incorporate these issues as
even that big fire, no? The big
Mhm.
fire in which hundreds of workers died. In fact,
Yes,
when
ma'am.
I had gone to Bangladesh, it was immediately after that episode, no? Where workers had already told how hazardous the situation were. And none of these multinational companies did anything about occupational health and safety. And finally, so many lives were lost. So even that lot has been written about that also. What is happening in the garment industry, all those sweatshops which are there because all these products of Bangladesh, where the workers are paid less than $1 and they are sold in the world market at a very, very high cost of $200 and $300. So what is the level of awareness among women in your group selection or sample? Yeah.
Ma'am, I have tried to pick women from a lot of occupation, but there is definitely an issue of education, and then mostly those who were teachers or doctors, they were more about aware of those issues. But I have also taken interviews of those who work as household helpers, and they are not definitely aware of their rights.
Yeah, but at least they have heard these horror stories of their relatives who went to Middle Eastern countries, no?
Yes, they have, and which is why the migration rate is quite declining, and women are not feeling safe to go out anymore.
Correct, correct. So I think all these issues need to be brought in, because the question of the universal human rights and UDHR not being implemented in the diplomatic relations is a very important issue. No,
Yes, ma'am.
so yeah. Thank you. I think you have taken a very important concern. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Samu KZG to continue with
Simi madam may want to say something.
Very quickly, thank you, ma'am. Very quickly, Prapti ji, maybe we need to understand what is your motivation behind choosing this topic and how it has its implications upon feminist foreign policy, and what are the countries that maybe if you are talking about migration, where which are the countries you are looking at where the migration is happening, and what is the sandwiched generation. So that has to be brought out very clearly in your paper and in your research.
Yes, ma'am.
And as well as the age group has to be defined, and the reasons for you to be selecting that age group, the reason for your sample size. So the methodology also needs to be explained quite well in order to fit into the topic.
Yes, ma'am.
Because caregiving has been a major occupation of women migrants, whether they are in domestic, whether they are in the Middle East or in Singapore or in some of the South Asian countries, where they are either as a domestic worker or as a child care minder or as elderly people. This thing, no. So I think you have to connect paid work, paid and unpaid work, and also the exploitation. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Samu KZG, if she is present in the meeting. Bikir Kumari Hamiji.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Please go ahead.
I think everyone can see my presentation.
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Yes, just. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to give my heartfelt thanks to the IMPRI and Asia Foundation to organize this fellowship program. My research on the evaluations of women political leadership in South Asia, focusing on the impact of patriarchy and the new opportunities that are emerging for women in politics. Before I'm entering to my team theories and the methodology and the rest of the things, I would like to share a small video based on my topic. Thank you, everyone. The main questions driving my research is how do patriarchy and the political dynastic affects women's leadership roles in South Asia. Along with this, I also explore how new trends like grassroots activism and digital platforms are helping women to take on more independent political roles. To answer these questions, here you can see my objectives. First, I want to highlight patriarchal system limit women's ability to participate in politics. These systems have long kept women from reaching political power. Second, I look at how political dynastic have influenced women political careers as many women rise to power because of their family connections, not their own political effort. We can see major examples in South Asia, especially while we are focusing about the India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Next, I focus emerging trends such as a grassroots movement and digital platforms that are creating new opportunities for women to get involved in politics on their own terms. I also planning to explore and these challenges women face in trying to overcome these old patriarchal and dynastic system. Lately, in my objective, as I mentioned here, policy recommendation to encourage more gender equality in politics and help create more inclusive environment for women. These are the theories actually I'm using. My research is based on the...
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but you have already exceeded by a minute. I request you to wrap up as questions.
Sure. Give me 1 minute, okay? I'll close my everything. Patriarchal, in my main idea is going to highlight is actually patriarchal politics and dynastic system. These are the two major forces that I'm going to use as a theory. And for my literature also based on especially the historical analysis and the case studies and semi-structured, how the socio-politics and gender norms help to empower women in especially the region. And as a conclusion, I would like to especially the highlight to this patriarchy and the dynamic politics are still very strong in South Asia. So how we are going to overcome these issues and empower regional women, especially emerging trends as a grassroots movement, and how to use digital platform to encourage and empower women in South Asian region, and the policy recommendation, how especially focusing the female as a terms like a female foreign policy movement, like how we elaborate these kind of a movement to region. Thank you so much.
I request the experts for the comments.
Thank you, Rasangaji, for choosing such a challenging topic. Your scope is very vast, but I would like to that whatever, like you will get a lot of information and the data, because all these politicians and the women leaders in South Asia, a lot has been written. But I think you need to analytically see to it that women's role in electoral politics, where you have a lot of data, which as you showed in your documentary in the video. Second one is that women's role in the right-based politics. That is also very important, which you have said, the whether Women Action Forum or the women's movement in India. Even in Sri Lanka, we had such a robust movement during 80s and 90s, no? And similarly in Bangladesh, a lot. The third one is the backlash that has come from the right-wing politics. As you saw, that Taliban also has a very strong women's lobby to support it, or even same in Pakistan, or same in Bangladesh currently, if you see. So even the right-wing backlash, which also utilizes women, and has a massive following. So I think all these three aspects we'll have to tackle, and also chronologically, that how the post-colonial nations who were rebuilding the society on a capitalist path, and after the liberalization in 90s, what kind of changes came, and how the women's movement gave a rebuttal to it, and how the new right-wing movements are also shaping women's predicament.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Rasangaji. Very interesting. And yes, there's a lot of literature and work that has been done around this theme. So maybe when you were talking about the already elected leaders based on their dynasties and their families, their histories. Perhaps it would be very interesting to also see what positive change or what contribution they had in their countries, because they ruled for quite some time, all these women, and being at the leadership, being at the helm, how what impacts were created for the growth of their respective countries would also be important, instead of simply being overly critical that okay, they did not really deserve, just because of their family values or family at the back, they could get elected. Another second thing is about the grassroots politics, where the role of men becomes very important in electing, or the proxies, that if you've read India's electoral system, in the Panchayati Raj, the proxy has the proxy mukhias that are there, or the proxy. So what is their role in helping advance the cause of women in the local politics? So that could be quite interesting. And because we have reserved seats for women even in the national legislature, which is the parliament. So what is the role of the men or the husbands in actually moving the wives upwards, or even the role of the fathers in moving the daughters upwards, just because it is a reserved seat? So that becomes quite interesting, could be seen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Before moving on, Razagna ji, I would request you to kindly share the video file that you showed in documentary in your presentation.
Sure, I will.
Yeah,
I
either
will.
on the IMPRI mail or on WhatsApp, either way you are convenient.
Yeah, I will send it to you via email.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now I request Samu KZ ji, if she is present with us. Pirzada Munir Islam ji, you can go on with the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Please pull up my presentation. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sure. So my topic of presentation is feminist foreign policy, intersections of religion, gender, and public policy. I would be mostly taking on the issue of religion and its intersectionality when it comes to foreign policy, especially feminist one, because feminism, as you know, is usually understood in terms of religion because it has a lot of intersectionality and relations with religious theories. People who are considered or who deem themselves feminist are often considered as heretics or irreligious in nature. So that deals with how feminism and religion will intersect in terms of the foreign policy. So that will be my presentation today. Please, next slide. So as we know that feminist foreign policy has a groundbreaking framework for global diplomacy, championing gender equality and the rights of marginalized communities. But however, current foreign policy models often overlook the deep influence of religion and cultural values on societal norms, leading to resistance in conservative regions where policies perceived as secular and Western can alienate communities. Religion profoundly shapes societal attitudes towards gender, influencing both individual behaviors and broader cultural structures. While religious traditions can reinforce traditional gender norms, they also contain principles of justice, compassion, and equity that align with feminist ideals. By constructively engaging religious frameworks, FFP can foster collaboration with faith leaders and communities, bridging cultural divides. An intersectional approach that integrates religious diversity with feminist goals is essential for creating sustainable and inclusive policies that resonate globally. The problem that we try to understand is that even if we try to go to Afghanistan's problem of girl education or dress code, Iran's issue of dress code, or on France issue of recent issues of hijab and all, we try to evade or just tend to the symptoms, the secondary symptoms of the issue, while as we often either because of more sensitivity towards religion or other divides, we do not go ahead and reach to those issues from which this concept of religious fanaticism or fundamentalism comes, and we do not tend to that equally. That is the problem where foreign policy, in my literature that I have read about foreign policy and religious intersectionality, that's why it lags behind. So next slide. So basically, there are n number of case studies and very well documented evidences of women being the victims of religious violence. The recent and the continued operation of these include involuntary sterilization and birth control of Uyghur Muslims in China, honor killings in Iraq, Pakistan, as well as in India. And there are state-sponsored rapes in Myanmar, who I want to emphasize here are religious in nature, forced marriage in Syria, FGM in sub-Saharan Africa and certain other parts, even in India, in the Bohra community. Then there is the oppression of women in Afghanistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and other, even in the localities of Pakistan, even in the localities of India and South Asia as such. The problem with them is that all these religious violences that are perpetuated on women are often overlooked in terms of just the religion perspective. What I mean by that is that women are considered as religious other. And when we tend to them, we say that if they lack education, let's give them education. But recent Taliban issue in Afghanistan has proved that states can override everything they wish to. Now, the problem remains in a religious scenario like Iran, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, or even in other countries. How do we infiltrate this issue where women are being oppressed and they are denied basic rights? And how do our foreign policy integrate with that and give them their due? That will be the problem here. So next slide, please. So feminine as religious other, who are denigrated, oppressed, and persecuted. The problem is that religious othering, in which a religious kin combats religious alien. Any person who belongs to a particular religious group considers other people as religious alien and worthy of damnation or oppression, even killing. So there have been evidence of rapes of women belonging to particular religion or religious denominations. Honor killings have a deep root in religion. Reproductive control, problem of girl education and dress code, which I mentioned, domestic abuse, and particularizing domestic chores with women, or the family laws that perpetuate non-structural violence to women. We have seen some evolving trends, positive trends in India, like the Sabrimala issue. We say the Supreme Court verdict on that, and on the triple talaq. The problem, however, is that, for example, taking the triple talaq issue, when we see that triple talaq was abolished, there is no such thing in actual, the Islamic literature, Islamic canon, as the triple talaq that was actually, done away with here in India. That was an Alamgiri thing that has nothing to do with Islam remotely. So doing such things, addressing those things, identifying those which have nothing to do with any religion, which are misrepresentations of religion, and going with them and actually infiltrating those discourses in the public, will try to actually make the feminine structure more worthy of it, more respectful, and eventually lead to the equity between feminine and masculine trends. Last slide, please.
Munirji, I request you to wrap up quickly now.
Yes, so there is a problem of religious side, which I mentioned, it has been in the China, Uyghur Muslims, in the Yazidis in Iraq, against Yazidis in Iraq, and Rohingya. And this abuse of women is a form of genocide in slow motion. This is usually fostered in a rape culture, where women forcibly married to men of other faiths or no faith often must submit to those men or risk losing their lives along with their religious identities. That becomes a problem in terms of genocide of these religiously motivated issues. Next slide. So the conclusion and recommendations, I would go to recommendations directly. It will be engaging academic religious scholars who study religious studies and compare to religions, and religious leaders and communities, develop culturally sensitive frameworks, educating policy makers on religious contexts, misinterpretations and false narratives, and promotion of dialogue between secular and religious actors. Thank you. That would be it.
I'll hand over it to the experts for
Yeah. Thank you, Parvez-ji, for this very important topic that you have chosen, which also takes up wide gamut of issues and that faced by women with regards to foreign policy and the cultural relativism related to cultural relativism. My comment is that you should also focus on the heroism of those who have challenged this kind of, even individual women who have challenged discriminatory family laws in all Asian countries. The question of solidarity, even in the midst of conflicts, or whether it's a communal riot or the honor killing, the support that they have received from the civilians. And third one is the person like Malala, or there are several such Malalas in Asian countries who have, even recently we saw the girl in Iraq, young girl, 19-year-old girl, she has defied charges. So I think that gives hope that even in the midst of such severe onslaught and coercion by the authorities, aided by the religious intolerance and sectarianism, there are forces which are, and there are individuals and collective endeavor to challenge it. So it can be either individual initiative or change in the policies. I remember in London School of Economics, where all these young children from Sub-Saharan Africa, they used to be in the class. They did not utter a word in the class when FGM was discussed, where the Western liberals were talking about conducting FGM under sanitized condition in the operation theater, rather than leaving it to the quacks, no, which would generate septicemia and all. But these young boys, when they went back to Africa and became politics, because they were children of elite and the plum positions were ready for them, and they brought in so many progressive laws, no, that they're banning FGM. So I think involvement of men, and so many young men who are also now sticking out their neck, and they are just not just happy enjoying privileges which patriarchy gives them. What is there? How do they make difference as bureaucrats, as politicians, as lawmakers, as teachers, and as civilians? No, I think if that also can be brought in, so because it makes a very inspiring story. No, otherwise it all looks that we all are doomed.
Definitely, ma'am. It's important to take up those case studies and not only lead the legacy and take their legacy forward, what they did in circumstances that we cannot even imagine of, going against. It's important and imperative to bring in, and I'll bring them in my research paper. Due to scarcity of time here, I could not manage it, so I focused on the key.
No, you need not do the in-depth interview. Even whatever is written testimonies are there in public domain. Even from that, I think inspiration can be the way our Sri Lankan friend has done. She has she has done. Similarly, you can also, on the secondary sources, you can weave them into your thing. Thank you. Very good.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manish. Where are you located, by the way? Hello,
ma'am. I'm from Kashmir, ma'am. I have done my PhD in religious studies from Jamia Millia Islam.
Okay, so I think the sources would not be a problem. You'll be able to access internet.
That's not an issue. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any comments from Simi, ma'am?
Very quickly, thank you, Munirji, for your presentation. Perhaps if you could also look at the role of various institutions and also various multilateral organizations working in these countries, how they have aided or how they have enabled the voices of women. That would be very interesting. And perhaps there could be some stories of men also. All men are not perpetrators. So if even if one or two stories such as these could be elaborated, it would be quite interesting. Thank you.
Definitely, ma'am. That they are in the loop. I will definitely do that. I will check what could be done in that. I'll mention them. And as I said, due to scarcity, I could not bring in all, but I will definitely incorporate that. Thank you. Thank you for your suggestion.
Also, the role of Malala's father, who ran the school for girls,
yes,
the harassment, very inspiring.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
I now request Dr. Amita Marwaji to continue with the presentation. Dr. Amita Marwaji.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you share the screen, because for some reason I cannot.
Have you sent your PPT? Have you sent your PPT? Have you sent it to?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Fine.
Ma'am, I've not received your PPT.
Oh, okay.
You
But
can
I
send it, right?
have, I'll try to share it because my laptop is not working. Just give me 1 second. I'll try to share it.
Okay.
In the meantime, we could have the next.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you also send it again to the,
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Have the next presenter.
So I request Dr. Apurva Dikshitji to go on with the presentation. Dr. Apurva Dikshitji.
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Yeah.
Just a second, I'll share my screen.
Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
Definitely. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Here we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Apurva Dikshit. I am currently working as an assistant professor in School of Law, GD Goenka University. The topic which I've chosen for presentation today is the role of women's organizations shaping feminist foreign policy, a comparative study. The basic highlight which I've kept in mind is regarding the dispute resolution mechanism as well. Since my specialization happens to be in that domain, so I wanted to amalgamate both the areas and understand how this could be workable. So the key findings which I was able to understand through this was the collaborative approach and enhanced peace outcomes. While we talk about women's role in making a dispute resolve easily, finding reveals that the women organization actually utilize a collaborative conflict style management. I mean, all the women, and with no offense to the other gender, will agree that we're a little calm. We're a little on the calmer side. We're on the collaborative approach. We like to cooperate. We like to listen to the other person. And this emphasis on dialogue and consensus building fosters inclusive and sustainable solutions. Now, also, if we talk about the enhanced peace outcomes, research indicates that there's a strong correlation between women's participation in peace negotiations and the longevity of the peace agreements. This actually suggests that the involvement enhances the quality and effectiveness of the conflict resolution processes. Now, I have taken 3 case studies which are of Sweden, Canada, and Germany, wherein there have been feminist movements in all these 3 countries and which have played a pivotal role in shaping the national policies. Now, while we talk about Sweden, the policy which I'm talking about is specifically is the gender equality in international relations. This focuses on gender-sensitive foreign policy, which has influenced Sweden's approach to conflict resolution and peace building. Whereas if I talk about Canada, its feminist international assistance policy exemplifies a commitment to gender sensitive and development aid. Now, the reason why these 3 countries have chosen because they have specifically targeted, in the sense, not targeted would be the right word, but they have put a lot of involvement of women, and that involvement has actually shaped and actually helped in understanding the dispute legislative policy formulation, and they've helped in a positive manner. I will not take much time because we are running short of time. So I'll quickly move to the next part. Now, challenges which are being faced by the women organization. First one being the cultural norms. Now, while I talk about cultural norms specifically in the country like India, excuse me, the social expectations and the cultural norms actually often limit women's participation in decision making and hindering their ability to influence foreign policy and conflict resolution processes. Because there is a mindset which is behind, and that is the cultural setback which we are facing. Underrepresentation is another factor and another challenge because, I mean, to be frank, we all know that the participation of women in any organization and every organization is comparatively very less to the other gender. Now, resource constraints, limited access to resources, including funding and support, hampers women's organizations' ability to effectively advocate for their priorities and implement their initiatives. Now, what could be the recommendations? Policy recommendations that government should be recommending strategies to promote gender-sensitive initiatives, ensuring women's full and equal participation in conflict resolution and peace building. However, we do have Article 15 standing apart, but there are more policies which are required right now to help. Increased funding, promoting gender equality, and expand research. These are the recommendations which I am able to enhance through my research. Now, moving ahead, if we talk about the conclusion, the power of women organization, the crucial role This research concludes that the women's organization play a critical role in shaping feminist foreign policy. Because being a woman and being a person from representing this gender, I would be able to understand the problem, the challenges which I face. I mean, if you ask for a, let's just say, posh sexual harassment rules against the women at the workplace, can a man draft it? It's a woman who goes through those challenges, and the policies which are to be required could be framed by a person who's actually undergoing all these things. Just for example, so the contributions are essential for achieving sustainable peace and fostering inclusive governance. And the last point is the empowerment and support. Continued support and empowerment of these organizations are very crucial for the effectiveness of foreign policies and advancing gender equality. I think on that note, I would end my presentation here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been lovely since the past few weeks, having the discussions and hearing everybody on Fridays. It's been a lovely time spent. Thank you so much, IMPRI.
Yeah. So my response to your presentation is that only one sentence where you said that can man frame such policies. In fact, it's a question of not being biologically woman or a man. What are your values? You have some of the most progressive policies on POSH. For example, Bombay University's progressive policy was drafted by Advocate Mihir Desai.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
we have also, so that is there. Justice Verma, though he told the feminists to write Vishaka directive, help him write, but you know Justice Verma committee's recommendation and how they screened more than some 20,000-30,000 recommendations which they had received. So I think that is very important. That what are your ideologically, what are even the legacy of social reform movement, which showed the role that male social reformers played, like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, where women of his family wanted, they were rationalizing widow burning, while he said nothing doing. I can't see my sister-in-law entering fire. So I think that is very, very important.
Absolutely, ma'am. I completely agree with you. The idea was just to make more women involved in these policies, because you
that is there.
There are people who are supporting us, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I
So
think
we need the allies. Yeah.
Yes, is more important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. Mitsumi-ji?
Yes. Very interesting presentation. Just one point, if we could have more of mentions of anecdotes, that would be really interesting, and it would help the research go very, very importantly well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. I have put some points in my paper essay. I think because of the time constraint, I did not elaborate it that much, but you will see in my essay that I have put all those things. Thank you.
And some of the women diplomats like Meera Shankar or
Nirupama,
they have spoken publicly on how they worked as a diplomat, where to see to it that more and more harmony was created and more dialogues were established. No? So even those experiences of women diplomats will also be used.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. These could also be found in many of our webinars that were conducted, and they have been part of it, and they have also spoken about their experiences.
The videos are there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I will also add them. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And now
event outcome reports are also there. Event outcome reports of feminist foreign policy. Previous 3 rounds are there.
All right, ma'am.
IMPRI.
I will definitely look into it. Thank you so much, Vibhuti, ma'am.
Yeah.
So I request Dr. Amita Marwaji to go on with the presentation.
Right. So I did send my presentation.
Yes, ma'am. I've received it. I'm just sharing it.
So thank you, Shweta. My presentation is basically, and the topic which I've chosen is feminist foreign policy and its transformative potential in global migration and refugee governance. There is a very stark reason why I chosen this topic, and I'll be sharing that in the end. Can I have next slide, please? The objective of basic basically, we are living in an era where an unprecedented global migration is happening. Not only Syria, and other parts of the world is witnessing these things where the people are actually migrating or to other countries. Even India has seen that kind of influx in terms of Rohingya refugees and Bangladeshis and other kind of refugees. So my basic, can I have next slide, please? My basic study is more from economics point of view. See, this is a new topic for me because I wanted to understand what feminist foreign policy is all about, and how the underpinnings of foreign policy, and of course how we can have a comprehensive framework for integrating FFP approaches into global migration, specifically in context to countries like emerging economies like India. Next slide. So these are the 3 research questions which I have actually thought about. Now, how does this implementation of feminist foreign policy transform, institutional approaches and outcomes in refugee and migration governance? And the entire thing which I could understand from the entire thing is, can I have a next slide, please? Next. Next. Yes, the entire thing I could understand is basically it's all about traditional approaches, which was more state-centric. It is more securitized perspectives, and of course, male-dominating. We want to actually convert this kind of a thing and transform into a feminist approach, which will actually try to understand more the perspective from a more feminist lens. So what we need is basically a policy redesign and institutional changes in institutional framework. But what happens when you actually come across countries like India, where we are emerging economies? Can I have next slide, please? So this kind of a conceptual framework is possible in the countries like India, and because we have various challenges at the ground level, and the challenges which we experience is little different from what the Sweden or probably the Canada or the other European countries, the groundwork which they have laid down is we have a different kind of a social system. We have a different kind of a resource accessibility. Even the per capita availability of capital is very limited. We have faced various challenges at the front of societal level, and of course there is a lot of the society is actually not ready to give the gender the kind of equality which we actually see in European countries. So actually imitating that thing in our country probably is little difficult. Can I have next slide, please? Next. Yes, next. Yeah, so what we require in our country is political will, adequate resource allocation, capacity building efforts, and meaningful community engagement. Now, can I have next slide? So this is intersectional approaches to migration governance, which is actually a very important part of feminist foreign policy, to study intersectionality. Now, gender identity, race, economic age, status, age, disability, sexual orientation, indigenous background. Now, when the Rohingya refugees has come to India, there are many refugees that are still in India, and actually are stationed at probably at the border area. Now they have a very interesting relationship with India also, because they are working as informal workers within the territory of India, and the idea, and they don't have these kinds of rights which we are actually looking at the screen. Can I have next slide?
Dr. Marwaji, I'd request you to wrap up quickly now.
Yeah, sure. So the entire idea is to understand that how we can incorporate feminist foreign policies agenda, feminist foreign policies into our own framework, and to give dignity to actually those women which are actually coming within our territory and still do not have access to even a simple right of let's say a citizenship. So I'm trying to figure it out, that what is the middle way of bringing that kind of a feminist foreign policy into the framework and emerging economies like India. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, I request the experts for the comments now.
I congratulate you for taking up the issues of migration, because it's a most mind-boggling issue that most of the nation states are finding after economic globalization, because when it comes to capital investment and all, the globalization is acceptable, liberalization and no borders and all. But when it comes to the human beings, they are becoming more and more stricter when it comes to granting visa and all. So I think it's very important thing, and bringing the issue, because wherever we go, all the employers organization, they are happy. You see the construction giants everywhere, and you most of them have Bangladeshi workers who would work for the lowest minimum wages. Even the question of sanitation workers, if you see the getting into the underground sewage and all that kind of a completely hazardous task are done by them. But at the same time, when it comes to giving them social security, social protection, citizenship right, dignity, and that whole Damocles sword constantly standing on their head, no, that any time they'll be deported, and even at the time of NRC and the whole agitation that we had, that also showed these double standards of the state, whether it is in America vis-a-vis Mexico. You just, if Mexican labor is not there, American economy will be paralyzed. They are the ones who are doing the most hardcore work, no, in Arizona and Texas and everywhere. So I think the main thing is that even the employers organization, because the employers are secretly employing them. You go to Assam and sit in the drawing room of any elite, even police officers or the bureaucrats, and you get all hot, nice meal, and one after another courses come. And you say, who has made it? And they would introduce this woman who is working, and she happens to be Bangladeshi, you know. And but at the same time, they would take a stance in public against the immigrants, no. So this is the dilemma and the dichotomy and the criminalization of migrants which happens. And it was only, I think I know only Anil Patwardhan who has made a film, Mumbai Hamara Test, where every time anything went wrong in Bombay, they would blame the migrants, no, because Bombay has around 60% migrants. So that happened, and he said that these are the backbone of Bombay. If they are not there, economy will collapse. So I think that angle that you have brought down, the empathy and humanity and also social security that you need, is extremely important. And it is not only for us. All the South Asian states, they need to have all the global economies, because all of them are now talking about inward-looking policy. And as a result, those who suffer the most are migrant people. Even in the Scandinavian countries, Sweden and Norway and Denmark also. Thank you. Simiji?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, Dr. Marwa, for your presentation. My one comment is that in the slide where you had mentioned that you would want to look at the 4 aspects where there is meaningful community participation, institutional effectiveness, etc. If you could also show what kind of work has already been done, and it's not that it's it is something new that we need all these things. Definitely there has been a lot of work done over the past few decades. So and where the work has been done and where are the challenges, where do we need to go, that gap, if that can be made very clear, and work around that gap, that would be very effective and bring your paper very well.
I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to figure out that gap, because there are challenges which are very ground level challenges. I'd like to share one small instance. There was this lady who comes, as ma'am was mentioning over here, who picks up the rag, and the kind of threats and the kind of things which they face, which she tells me, is really, really heartbreaking. So we can understand that we are actually using them as a labor, but then we are not giving them not even as dignity of being a worker in our country. So informal sector is really thriving on these people. So I like to figure out that gap myself. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Tina ji to go on with the presentation.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. I have shared my PPT with you. Can you please share it?
Ma'am, we have not received your PPT. Could you share it again?
Did you send to learnings? Which email ID?
It's read.
Reeth, acha, Reeth. Everyone is sending it to Reeth only.
Ma'am, could
only
you
one
please
person.
send it to learning at IMPRI?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Meanwhile, we can.
I've shared it, ma'am.
So we'll move ahead with the next fellow. I request Ahana Singh ji to go on with the presentation.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
One moment. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So my topic is rethinking feminist foreign policy, India's colonization. So my paper seeks to bridge the gap by critically examining Western foreign policy models from a post-colonial perspective to identify how India's unique context and priorities could add richness to any universally relevant decolonized framework. The study would examine to what extent feminist foreign policy frameworks are imbued with assumptions that might overlook or disregard the lived experiences and needs of countries in the global south, particularly India. In the study, the legacies of colonialism and the intersections with contemporary feminist agendas are assessed to determine how applicable and relevant post-colonial thought may be to offering alternative policies for challenging FFP. The aim is to present a model of FFP that is intersectionality, inclusivity, and adaptability sensitive, and opens the doors for post-colonial states and their assumptions of feminist policies. So the research questions that I posed were: how do models of Western feminist foreign policies reproduce power relations? How large is the role of post-colonial in shaping the frameworks of feminist foreign policy? In what way can India contribute to a decolonized feminist foreign policy? What are the limitations and challenges of implementing Western models in the global south? And what would decolonial feminist foreign policy actually look like? So the few case studies that I wanted to pick up as an example, just to share here, was India and the development diplomacy, particularly through initiatives like the International Solar Alliance and development partnerships with Africa, etc. Taking up examples like Rwanda and their gender responsive foreign policy, which is often called a feminist foreign policy pioneer in Africa, and Bangladesh. Women in the peacekeeping of Bangladesh have become a leader in deploying women in UN peacekeeping operations. And this is one of the methods in which I would like to study my topic. The final step would be developing a decolonized framework for FFP that takes in the values and priorities set by post-colonial states. Given that this research project draws from Indian foreign policy perspectives, coupled with the regional and specific feminist analysis, this section will detail the key elements of decolonized FFP that safeguards both gender justice, and national sovereignty. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ahanaji. I understood what will be your focus on India's foreign policy, and also Rwanda case study extremely inspiring, and we need to really learn a lot from that. But for Bangladesh, what will be your focus area?
So for Bangladesh, I wanted to pick up the peacekeeping forces that they have in place.
Okay. And there are there any articles or research reports on that?
Yeah, there were a few that I was reading.
Right. They are official sources, yeah.
Yeah.
Or by the, okay.
My comment is that when you're looking at the developmental partnerships in Rwanda, you could look at the work that has been done in the agricultural sector, because India has partnered with the country and along with another country, the United States, and they have enabled the women farmers, the women agriculture, those engaged in agriculture, to a lot of to be actually standing on their feet as against the last few decades, and this has been a success story. So in the development partnerships, if agriculture could be taken up, it would be quite interesting.
Yes, ma'am. I'll definitely look into that.
University partnerships and also through various NGOs, INGOs, they have really worked a lot.
And how they converted alcoholic dens into a milk booth, no? Because there's so many buffaloes and cows were given by India to Rwanda.
Yes.
And these women politicians, so that people did not lose
And they've become
those who were and the bootleggers did not become unemployed. Only thing they changed their profession from that to milk, selling of milk or providing milk.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'll look into it. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
So I now request Dr. Tina ji to go on with the presentation.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, topic of my presentation is the impact of feminist foreign policy on women's rights, a comparative analysis. Basically, feminism is an ideology which deals with the social, political, and economic rights of the female. So it advocates for the inclusion of the gender perspective in all foreign policy decisions and initiatives, support gender equality and women empowerment, gender equality in diplomatic negotiation and international agreement, specific security needs of women and girls, including protection from violence and participation in peace building process, gender responsive and address the needs of the women and girls. There are a number of examples of feminist foreign policy, such as an example of Canada feminist international policy. It gives the preference to the gender equality and the women empowerment in all areas which are related to the Canadian foreign aid. Sweden is also a great example of FFP when we are talking about it integrating gender equality into the all aspects of its policies. Sweden's feminist policy, it has been a pioneer in case of feminist policies and integrating gender equality in all aspects of its foreign policy. If we are talking about Mexico, though it is not a developed country, it is a developing country, but still it is focused on the gender equality, human rights, and the women empowerment. So basic reason behind the research is to understand this growing movement that challenge the previous or the traditional approach and how it is against the patriarchal society, whether it gives a new dimension to the women's right in socio-political and legal aspect in India. Ma'am, please next slide. Key aspects. So basically, what are the key principles of this foreign policy, feminist foreign policy? Next slide, ma'am. So when we are talking about the key aspects or the key principle of this foreign policy or feminist foreign policy, so gender equality is a foremost principle of feminism and it addresses the gender disparities in every aspect of the foreign policies. Secondly, feminist foreign policy advocate the human rights for all without discrimination on the basis of gender. Next, FFP recognize the interconnections of the various forms of oppression such as the gender, race, class, and the sexuality. Feminist foreign policy is working against the male-dominating society. It empowers the women in the society and fight for their rights. And this policy encourages the peaceful conflict resolves and talks about the basic reasons of the domestic violence and the other kinds of abuse against the women and girls. And the feminist foreign policy identify the unequal impact of environmental degradations on the women and the weaker section of the society, because everyone is now working on the sustainable development. And when we are talking about the sustainable development, social development, it's also a part of the sustainable development. So in my conclusion, ma'am, please come to the part of conclusion. In my conclusion, I just want to recognize the basic things for the gender equality in India and the feminism concept of this concept in India. So when we are talking about the feminism, the development of the true feminist movement is seriously hampered by the emergence of pseudo-feminism. Such phenomena just be through examine in order to discerns between the self-serving tales and the true feminism activism. We can strive towards a day where women's rights are completely upheld and safeguarded by encouraging a comprehensive awareness of the feminist ideals and by making people and organizations responsible for their needs. But if we are talking about the India, specifically India, yes, we are working towards the feminism. Now we are advanced gender equality both at home and abroad with a notable success. We are the part of CEDAW, that is the Convention on Elimination of All Kind of Disparities Against the Women. So we are working on it, but we have number of things in our country through which we cannot say we are doing the same thing as with the developed country or the other countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tina ji. I request the experts for the comments now.
Dr. Tina ji, your abstracts are very general. You need to focus on area, whether you want to focus on feminist foreign policy and its implementation in India with regards to CEDAW or Beijing Platform for Action, or the work which the women's movement has done and in furthering the transnational solid. One particular aspect you take and go, because you have to create new knowledge, because whatever you have told in the abstract is already been studied widely, repeatedly. So, and it is too general, no? So we come up with a specific focus for your paper. That's my suggestion. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar comment as well as Professor Patel. And also because if you are focusing on the role of feminist foreign policy on women's rights, so then we are, again, rebringing the focus of inquiry into the traditional critique which feminist foreign policy has, that we are talking only about women. So it has to be inclusive. We have to show that it is actually inclusive, and bringing the focus of inquiry into women's rights is again it becomes redundant. So we need to renew the knowledge production, what we are actually aiming for. Thank you.
And when you use the term like a pseudo-feminist and all, these are very value-loaded things. So you'll have to deconstruct that if you are using that term. No, and so far as possible, don't use the word female, which generally is derogatory. Only in statistics and all, male, female we use. Otherwise, you call women and girls. No.
Yeah, definitely, ma'am. Definitely. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable comments.
Where are you from, Dr. Tina? Go ahead.
All right. So I request Aditya Mishra ji to go on with the presentation.
Hi. Good evening, all.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Aditya Mishra. I am student of US Studies in Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Is my presentation visible?
Yes. Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you. Then okay.
Sir, I'm already sharing your PPT. Would you like me to go to the next slide?
Yes. That's why I was confused.
Okay.
Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. Here, I in my paper, I will be looking at how gender has intersections in the field of diplomacy, specifically focusing on the outer space domain, that is emerging field in currently, and why particularly this topic. Just a minute, because I will be working in my PhD for the topic of outer space, and how it has emerged, and what is the trajectory forward for that. And when I was try to look here at how inclusion of gender, that is increasing, if diversity is increased in the diplomacy arena of outer space, how things can change. And when I started reading, unfortunately, I didn't get much on the outer space diplomacy where gender features specifically. Hence, I tried to work upon myself that I will look, and for that I will have to look on a greater detail from other sources, specifically in the science and tech domain, so that I can get some sense how it can work in the field of outer space. For the purpose, I was looking at the emergence of how the diplomacy, especially since the Second World War, has emerged in the domain. Then I was looking at that is the first slide also, evolving space landscape. The space exploration, which has happened till date, has shifted from being primarily government controlled to a more complex multi-stakeholder ecosystem. As nearly every week we can see some post and some new things happening from the SpaceX, that is Elon Musk's company, and other companies also they are coming up. This transformation requires a reimagining of space diplomacy to accommodate a range of new actors, including private companies, which are now coming up, international organizations also, like United Nations and others also, and the emerging space powers like India and other countries which are now coming up. And this emerging dynamics of ecosystem where lots of new players are coming up, they demand new approach to manage international relations and negotiate in space, addressing not only technical and scientific aspects, but also political, economic, and social factors that shape the governance of the space domain. Looking at the gender disparities, despite significant progress as we have seen in the several this theme of feminist foreign policy, that there are a lot of changes coming up, but historically gendering has not been that much prevalent diversity in the sense of diversity in the science and tech domain, and they still persist quite a lot. And space domain is not bereft of that. Women were systematically excluded from astronaut programs and space-related roles for it's still a first slide. Women were systematically excluded from astronautical programs and space-related roles for much of the 20th century. And although there has been progress such as inclusion of women in later missions, the persistence of gender disparities in leadership role and technical position highlight that genuine equality remains an ongoing challenge. Next slide, please. The cultural and institutional influences which we see in the terms of gender dynamics in space diplomacy are shaped by complex web of cultural, social, and institutional factors that vary significantly across different countries and regions. For instance, cultural attitude towards gender roles as well as institutional structure within space agencies can either facilitate, if company itself, which is coming up is has lots of women, then they will fare like that. But if they do lack presence of other genders in their institutional mechanism, that will still persist with the upcoming of in the domain of outer space also. Then these varying contexts highlight the need of nuanced understanding of gender issues in space exploration. And the second theme of in this slide, commercial space and gender. The rise of private companies introduce new power dynamics into space diplomacy, which can either challenge or reinforce existing gender inequalities. While these companies are pushing the boundaries of space exploration, they also bring with them the cultural norms and organizational structures they may replicate or even exacerbate gender disparity, even gender disparities which are seen in traditional government agencies, like specifically that is the area which is male dominated. Next slide, please.
Aditya Mishra ji, I request you to wrap up quickly. You have already exceeded 1.5 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Then I'll just conclude with the questions which I am going to look upon. It is the last slide, I think. Last second slide. Okay. it is not there. I will just speak up. I have a different slide in that it is present. The questions which I am looking is how is the evolving landscape of space exploration influence gender equality in space diplomacy? What cultural and institutional factors shape gender dynamics in space activities across different countries? How do commercial space companies and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence impact gender roles and inequalities in the outer space domain? What role does intersectionality of gender, race, nationality, etc., play in shaping gender equality in space diplomacy? And what institutional reforms and strategies are necessary to achieve gender equality in space diplomacy? Because already, as I have mentioned, that they are already quite lacking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I request the experts for their comments now.
I think we should, will you also focus on how person like Kalpana Chawla or Sunita Williams or Sharmila Bhattacharya or like all those women who joined NASA, they have acted as role model to the younger generation? Or what were their trajectories in getting into such prestigious institutions and getting a very crucial position in those institutions? And why they had to leave India? Were there similar possibilities available, or the women scientists in ISRO? To what is their weightage and bargaining power in the space hierarchy, the career hierarchy?
Yes, ma'am. It is quite important to look at these women who are already or who have worked in past, because that can be a learning experience how they managed and how others can do. Because it is important to transform the institution, that is structure which is prevailing there. Like if we talk in ISRO, Ritu Mahajan, Dr. Ritu Mahajan, who was leading the Mars mission, we have seen in the Mom movie also. These women and Kalpana Chawla, after that, when Kalpana Chawla went to space, after that, Chandigarh Institute, there is an Institute of Technology in Chandigarh. I think it's Chandigarh Institute of Technology. They name in which she has did her bachelor's BTech in aeronautics and changed its name to Kalpana Chawla Institute. But changing name of the institute did actually contributed anything to we will have to look on that, and how other women also managed to get how they are like you mentioned in about diplomats, Meera Shankar, etc. These diplomats also keep coming to JNU, and we many times interact and see how they do. Then the lots of jobs are not given to them. They are thought to be inferior to others, that is male dominated, and they can do better, and why keep women there? These things come up, then we will have to look how these spaces are opened up, how they push the boundaries, traditional boundaries to get in.
Yeah, no, but even like we talk about Kalpana Chawla and Sunita Williams, but there were like Dr. Sharmila Bhattacharya or Dr. Kamlesh Lulla or Dr. Maya Mayappan or Dr. Anita Sengupta, Dr. Madhulika Guha-Thakurta. All of them have also been in the globally this thing, though they are not, they did not gain the celebrity status. But what were the factors which facilitated, which were the enabling factors and disabling factors for them to get into the career in space research or space arena? No? Yeah.
Yes. We will have to look in that also, ma'am, because
and
many
how
times.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how, being Indian, did they manage to get position in a place like NASA, which is so security conscious? No.
Yes, ma'am. I will have to look in detail on that. I was looking, but much content is not available on the background on the stories like which we are discussing here. It is quite tough to get how she managed to be simply what we get, that she just emerged in somewhere from outside in the NASA, and she became the explorer. That is how we see the story, because it is quite tough domain to get details.
Yeah, even in ISRO, like even in ISRO, when I was invited for International Women's Day, I was not allowed to, the two directors, they took me on the podium. I was not allowed to even interact with the women scientists
Yes.
there, and they were highly competent women. Finally, I defied and got from the podium to this thing and started talking about, and all of them are extremely competent as a radar technologists and the space technology. Only when the Aryabhatta and this thing was discussed that we saw them, their faces, no? Otherwise, they were always invisible. Yeah.
Yes,
So will you be able to, have you interacted with anyone of them?
No, ma'am. As of now, I have not interacted, but earlier I have interacted to Ritu Mahajan and
you have only
several other
secondary
women also.
sources, huh?
Yes, and I was talking to Professor Nivedita Menon also to how to conduct such researches, and let's see what she suggests.
Yeah. Janki, you want to say something?
No, it's my presentation next.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, after
Okay.
Dr. Simi, after Dr. Simi, if
Yes.
she.
My brief comment on Aditya. Yes, certainly, whatever Professor Patel has mentioned, that is very important and it needs to be incorporated. And secondly, it is about, if you talk about diplomacy, then where in the process of negotiating outer space, for example, cooperation deals, or which country are we cooperating with, where are the women there, who are the women there, perhaps the nitty-gritties of maybe one or two such cases that could actually help amplify your idea to a larger extent. And also the role of women scientists at ISRO, and also maybe at NASA, wherever they have cooperated. And certainly I am aware of many such cooperative agreements that ISRO and NASA are having currently, and previously also they have had in the past. So the previous ones definitely would be declassified. And there's the Department of Space right now in the US. Perhaps you could look at that also. And in the negotiation process, and where are the women there? And the role of women in this in the policy making process, that would actually help your research gain wider insights. So please incorporate. Thank you.
Certainly, ma'am. Thank you.
Now I request Janki and Dharyaji to go on with her presentation.
Are you able to see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm seeing the list of panelists.
Generating HRD.
All right. So I belong to the domain of disaster studies and climate change and so on, extreme weather events. And my focus is really going to be on looking at these guidelines which have just been issued by the government. That's on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief as of October 2024. So, I mean, this is about India and India responding to other countries whenever they face disasters. It's been traditionally seen as an important aspect of diplomacy and seen as soft diplomacy. And the word HADR is used essentially in most military organizations across all countries. And therefore, it's also an important part of international relations. So as disasters increase, I think by and large, there is this whole idea that we should be responding, support our neighbors, and help out people in need. And this reaching out is called HADR. So yes, as I said, it's seen now also as soft diplomacy. And our present Prime Minister has been going around in many countries and saying that we will be the first ones to sort of come in and help out and so on. So there's a lot of interest in HADR, and therefore we have had a new policy. Now, my fundamental sort of approach is to actually examine how gender sensitive is the HADR policy. And I think it's anybody's guess what it might be. But basically, one is looking at literature, which covers multilateral systems where we engage in HADR. So we also have different regional agreements. I would look at power dynamics within these various regional platforms. There's literature on militarization and gender, and then best practices of HADR in other countries, and gender equality programming, which I think is something that has been talked about a lot in the UN documents. So there is a lot of literature available around that. So this is about the methodology. There would be literature review and interviews with senior NDMA officials. I'm well networked with all of them, and we are doing sort of several projects together and so on. So I'm called in to advise on various matters. So I think I have access to all of them. And broadly, my research integrates disaster management, feminist studies, and international relations. And these are the three objectives: to assess the extent of inclusion of gender, to examine how HADR guidelines in India may be reshaped with a feminist perspective, make them socially responsive, and also more conscious of issues of justice. We also think that this is an opportunity for us to work with other countries on issues of gender relations and feminist policies. So being able to invoke all of that across countries is an opportunity for all of us as feminists to piggyback ride, as it were, on HADR. And then to explore the nature of advocacy that is required at diplomatic levels. So we do believe that integrating gender in humanitarian action is a shared responsibility for all humanitarian workers, no matter what sector we work on. So you could be working on health, somebody could be working on water and sanitation, but all of that is. Now here is, these are the guidelines which very clearly our HADR guidelines, whoever produced them has not looked at. So these are guidelines that one draws on, and I hope to be able to sort of bring in several elements from these guidelines, which are from the Interagency Standing Committee. It's one of the highest bodies within the UN, and the document is pretty good. It's the second edition. The first one was 2006, and there's an improved version, a revised version of 2018, which is quite comprehensive. I've had a look at it, but our people don't seem to have looked at it. Though they talk about, I mean, the guidelines say that we have looked at international best practices, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, I'm going to be identifying very specific areas where you find gender blindness or women are just generally invisibilized. So now this is...
Janki ma'am, can you please wrap up in half a minute now?
Yeah, so this is my last slide, where one is identifying areas of critique, which is language of HADR, the need to rethink and re-envision gender structure within HADR governance institutions. This was something that was mentioned today. Consulting with both men and women, promoting women's rights, providing services around gender-based violence. Look at all aspects of gender in when you're programming, investing in local organizations, ensuring equitable access, and reflecting on women's and girls' needs. So that's it. Thank you very much. Happy to sort of look at, in fact, I'm doing a paper and probably also a newspaper article, which is going to critique this because it's just out it's just been printed. And I think there are serious issues that I have with the guidelines, given the fact that I've been working within it. It's highly militaristic in its orientation because it's meant for the military. It's more of guidance for military, and it's also a lot about coordination between the military and the civil bodies and so on. I think this is a good opportunity for all of us to infuse gender into the guidelines, and hopefully someone will take note. Hopefully we'll have some debates and discussions. Thank you.
Over to
Thank you, Professor. Yeah. Thank you, Professor Janki. I think it's a very comprehensive subject that you have taken, and especially the major challenge, catching the and wild animal by horns. So, but my first question is about why is it a conscious decision not to include BRICS, and what will be the response?
I don't know. It's not a conscious decision to. I mean, the BRICS will be. I have said etc. because there are several such platforms. I have only mentioned BIMSTEC and SARC and ASEAN because they all have a component of HADR. Now I will include BRICS as well. Yeah. And there are many more because India is now having a lot of we are networking, let's say, with the Pacific. There's an Indo-Pacific network of countries. So there's several platforms that we are now consciously a part of as a country. So
will you be taking case studies of tsunami or pandemic, and what kind of
so the guidelines
support?
No, so I'm going to be actually asking, what about this? What about that? Okay, so I'm not looking at case studies because the HADR guideline includes case studies. So they have included a Turkey case study. But again, there is, no mention of women anywhere. I mean, it would appear as if it's something is happening up there and all people are kind of men, So
yeah.
I mean, I'm just doing a very frontal sort of a critique of HADR guidelines, So from a gender lens.
But what will be the implication of recent statements made by incumbent president of USA, Mr. Trump, about taking on all these associations and network organizations of Asia?
I'm not getting into that at this stage because I think my focus really is to, if at all, I would be critiquing the fact that the guidelines mention that they have looked at HADR guidelines of Japan, of US, of Australia, and so on. But they are not necessarily taking the best out of all of that, nor are they kind of, so I think my focus really is on ensuring that we have a set of guidelines but I could include some of those issues in my review of literature, where one is looking at a thematic overview of various elements. I think that is where I could bring in dimensions from, like invoking those maybe case studies or even the recent formations, the critique, for instance. I don't know. I think Trump is another ball game to tackle, I think.
Yeah, okay. The only, one last comment is that disability movement has objected to the term gender blind. So they said we should use it gender absent. So I think we'll have to make terminological change.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Simiji, yeah.
Yes, very wonderful presentation, Janki ji. My point is that if you could also look at the CBDR, the common but differentiate to this, and also in the COP summits, we are increasingly seeing this aspect of HADR being taken up. So what over a period of, since maybe taking it from the Paris Declaration, or even before that up to the Baku Declaration, if you could incorporate some findings from there, and how our nations and how are they wanting to cooperate, how nations cooperate for this, would be quite interesting to look at.
Okay, I'll take a look. Sure. Thank you.
Common but differentiated responsibilities.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Bhanupriya Jaiswal ji to go on with the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for giving me the opportunity. Good evening, everyone. Ma'am, can you share the?
Yes, we can see it's in working mode. Yeah.
Okay. My topic is the digital diplomacy and the power of diaspora, Indian women in global governance and foreign policy. Next slide. First, I would like to say why I choose the topic. I choose this topic, digital diplomacy and the power of diaspora, because it highlights the involving nature of international relation and the influential role of the diaspora community, particularly Indian women, in the shaping shaping global governance. The intersection of the technology, diplomacy, and diaspora advocacy fascinates me as it reflects how traditional power dynamics are shifting in the digital age. Second, Indian women in the diaspora are not only redefining the leadership but also using the digital platform to amplify their voice on the critical issue like gender equality, climate change, and economic resilience. Uh, in its introduction, uh, the Indian diaspora, the largest in the world, has had a profound influence on global governance. Alongside the shifting from traditional diplomacy to the digital platform, forms, Indian women in politics, academia, and business have emerged as a key player. These women utilize tools like a social media, webinar, and virtual diplomatic channels to advocate for the change and amplify their voice on the global issues. They are shaping the policies and advocating for the changes in politics, academic, and businesses. Next slide, please. Digital diplomacy refer to use of information and communication technologies to manage international relations and advance national interest. The advantages are the significant. It's enable direct engagement with the citizen and stakeholders. It's offer real-time communication, which is crucial during crisis. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, governments effectively utilize the digital platform to share, update, and coordinate responses. Ma'am, next slide, please. Indian women in the diaspora brings the unique dual heritage and expertise, making them the powerful advocate for the inclusive policies. For example, Kamala Harris, who bridges cultural divides and the champions equality. Priyanka Chopra using the digital platform to promote child right and education. Geeta Gopinath, who economic resilience advocacy research the millions through the social media. These women demonstrate the impact of digital tool in amplify their influence. Feminist foreign policies integrate the gender equality into the global diplomacy and security, historically rooted in frameworks like the CWA, CEDAW and the CEDOC and UNSC resolution. It has been adopted by the nation like Sweden, Canada, and France. The impact is clear. Gender inclusive policies in trade and the peacekeeping and the development aid promote more equitable global governance. And the impact of diaspora women like Kamala Harris, Priyanka Chopra, Geeta Gopinath exemplify digital advocacy. They amplify social justice movements such as the Indian farmer protest issues like gender equality and climate change. However, challenges persist, including the gendered barriers, online harassment, and the resistance to progressive policies. Next slide, please. Despite the advantage and digital diplomacy is not without the challenges, cultural and societal stereotype often undermine women's role. Online harassment, including the cyberbullying, doxing, and the abuse, discourage participation. Policies resistance in both home and the host countries limited the full potential of the digital diplomacy. Diaspora women must also navigate the complexity of the dual identities and the loyalties. Next slide, please. To address the challenges, and we must uh, build the capacity through the digital literacy, political engagement, and communication training, leverage technology including social media and AI for the advocacy, foster collaboration among the governments and NGOs and diaspora groups. In the conclusion, digital diplomacy, the transforming international relation and amplify women voice. Indian diplomacy, Indian diaspora women are at the forefront, educating for the gender equality, social justice, and the sustainable development. The future of the diplomacy lies in the inclusivity and the diversity, ensuring that global governance reflect the voice of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhanupriya ji, for choosing a
Thank you.
very interesting topic of a very, very lively topic of today, digital diplomacy. I wanted to first of all know that do you mean that one of these three women, Priyanka Chopra and Kamala Harris ji and Gopinath, Dr. Gopinath, did they support farmer struggle, or you wanted that there is a hello?
Sorry, ma'am.
Did you get the evidences of three of them supporting farmer struggle?
Yes, ma'am. I saw the articles also. They are posting. I think so, ma'am.
Just verify the sources, because there were many feminists from all over the world who supported farmer struggle, both in terms of resources and giving their labor, going there personally and conducting classes and cooking and all that is there.
Yes,
Filmmakers and even diaspora filmmakers and intellectuals and writers and novelists and journalists, all of them have done. But I was not, in fact, a lot of TIS students, so many of them from development studies also went there, gave seva for 10 days, 15 days, like that. But some of these celebrity women, did they take stand in support? That I wanted to know. Second one, that the digital communities and the digital networks which are created by diaspora women, are you going to focus on them also?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I mentioned in the paper also, but I will try to elaborate more.
Because many of them have their web portals, they have their blogs, and they are constantly commenting on some of the vital issues, no? Global
Actually,
issues.
ma'am,
As well as
I am focusing on the role of diaspora women in the global governance.
No, that's why the diaspora women also have digital networks as well as the digital communities they have created of women who take stand on global issues and provide solidarity, no? Like that. So currently you can say what's happening in Bangladesh, or when at the time of tsunami or at the time of pandemic, the statements which were written by 400 feminists from all over the world. So this kind of initiatives they have also taken to build the public opinion on the vital issues. No?
Okay, ma'am. I will try mention.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Gorakhpur.
Okay.
UP.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. All the best.
My comment for Bhanupriya ji is very quite interesting research proposal. We need to really balance out or draw a line between the celebrity status diaspora women and who are our subjects and who are actually subject of analysis. And the three women that you have mentioned, one of them, to my knowledge, is an American citizen, and also she was she is the currently the vice president also, although the outgoing one. So, but she is an American first. Then we can call her a person of Indian origin. And through all my readings, she has how she has contributed to the growth to supporting women's cause in India needs to be really studied in depth. And because one thing that was criticized to a lot of extent was that during her 4-year tenure she did not visit India, and although she visited our neighboring countries to the east, this was not in her plan of visit. So how
the most controversial issue
supporting women's causes in India needs to be Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And the
To serving the cause of women and also
Hello.
yeah. And I think the most controversial thing for which I think most of the sophologists and electoral analysis is showing that she did not take stand
on the ground. She is
on Palestine, Gaza, no, the genocide in
Okay.
Gaza. That she did not take. She endorsed whatever the president was doing, no, in terms of military solutions. Right.
Okay, ma'am. I will try to redefine.
Thank you.
About.
Her
Thank you,
response
ma'am,
to the
for
students in universities, no, in Harvard and all, she
Okay.
did not stick out her neck, no, when the students were also expressing their anger against 15,000 children in Gaza being killed. She
Okay.
did not separate herself from what the president was doing. Otherwise, people would have voted for her. That's what was analysts are saying, no? Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am, I will redefine. I will go my article.
So critical
try to-
reflection is required
Okay.
instead of
Okay.
just eulogizing them as a gender equality people.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I request Dr. Savita Yadavji to go on with her presentation. Dr. Savita Yadavji. All right. Now I request Blessy Matthewji to go on with the presentation.
Savita Jadi, I am unable to unmute. She has written in the chat box. Dr. Savita Jadi.
All right. Blessy Matthewji is here already.
Great.
So maybe after.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I am Blessy Matthew, currently pursuing my PhD from the Department of Political Science from the University of Hyderabad. And my paper is titled as Gender Dimension of Statelessness, a Feminist Foreign Policy Approach to Protecting Stateless Women in South Asia. Statelessness is notably common in South Asia, a region defined by its colonial past, changing borders and disputed... I'm sorry, I didn't put it in the slideshow mode. Yeah. This context has resulted in vulnerable population with ambiguous national affiliation, leading to their exclusion and deprivation of fundamental rights, protection, and access to public service. In South Asia, gender discrimination exacerbates the effect of statelessness, with women in patriarchal societies frequently facing limited rights despite possessing full citizenship. Stateless women experience conditions like lacking citizenship right. They encounter legal and social exclusion from education, healthcare, economic participation, and fundamental protection against violence. Moreover, lacking citizenship often results in exclusion from national and international protection mechanism that could elevate their vulnerabilities. So this paper proposes a feminist foreign policy approach to address the specific needs of stateless women in Asia, with particular emphasis on hill country Tamils and Rohingya women in India. So the paper aims to incorporate feminist theory into statelessness by studies by suggesting a feminist foreign policy framework that caters to specific requirements of stateless women in South Asia. So the research objectives are analyzing the gendered aspect of statelessness by examining the distinct experiences of women, particularly regarding gender-based violence, restricted access to education and healthcare, and socioeconomic marginalization. The second research objective is critiquing the existing policy framework on statelessness in South Asia. And third one is to advocate a foreign feminist policy that addresses the needs of stateless women in South Asia. The research questions are in what way does statelessness affect women differently than men within South Asian context? And the second question is, what are the existing national and international policy constraints in meeting the distinct requirement of stateless women? How might the idea of feminist foreign policy increase the inclusivity and efficiency of efforts to protect and empower stateless women in South Asia is the third research question. Coming to the research gap, although some academic literature exists on statelessness and feminist foreign policy, research at the junction of these domains remains scarce. Much of literature on statelessness neglects the distinct obstacles encountered by women, particularly in patriarchal societies characterized by pervasive gender-based discrimination. Moreover, policy debates concerning statelessness frequently omit a feminist viewpoint, prioritizing national security and sovereignty over the human rights of stateless women. The chapterization, the first part of the paper would introduce the concept of statelessness in South Asia, the need for a gendered perspective by emphasizing the difficulties stateless women encounter. The section would delineate the paper structure and present the study's aim, question, and methodology. It would also provide an overview of Hill Country Tamils and Rohingya population, analyzing their historical, political, and social economic circumstances that have led to their statelessness. The second part of the paper will provide the study's theoretical framework, concentrating on feminist foreign policy and its significance in addressing statelessness. And the next part of the paper will evaluate existing policy framework regarding statelessness, emphasizing South Asian. Then it will look at the national policies and analyze the South Asian policies on statelessness, evaluating the absence of gender considerations and the necessity for reforms. It will also examine case studies or examples from various regions that have implemented gender-sensitive policies, emphasizing the best practices and insights that can be applicable to South Asia. And the last part of the paper would look at policy proposal grounded in feminist foreign policy concepts, promoting holistic strategy for safeguarding stateless women. Thank you.
All right, I request the experts for the comment.
Yeah, I think will you also take into consideration the interventions by the international agencies for the stateless women, or in terms of statements, in terms of actual humanitarian aid, and also giving them refugee status and all that, facilitating their refugee. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the location will be in the refugee camps or in the places where they are residing now, because so many Tamil refugees are now no more in the refugee camps, no?
Yes, ma'am. I would be looking at where they have been rehabilitated in southern states, especially in Karnataka, in case of the Indian Tamils.
Are they in a separate society? Are they in a reservation?
Yes. They live in a plantation sector kind of an area where the government of Karnataka have rehabilitated them in this particular colony kind of area where they reside.
Because I had seen them in the refugee camps of Chennai at that time, like it was in 1990. Immediately
There are few
after
of them, yes, ma'am. There are few
they
of them who are
migrated.
still in residing in the refugee camps, but people who have moved in prior to have been rehabilitated in different parts.
And what about Rohingyas? Are they rehabilitated or they are still segregated in refugee
They are
camps
still
only?
segregated, ma'am, and I plan to look at them in Hyderabad.
But do they have local job as domestic workers or home-based workers or putting out work, no, which the industries that's what I saw many refugees doing this kind of work. So far as the Tamil refugees were concerned, they were getting job from the local traders and all. No? Do Rohingyas also have this kind of assignments? They're from small scale industry or informal sector work? No?
No, ma'am.
So they're totally dependent on community kitchen and the aid which is provided by international agencies.
Yes, ma'am.
How do they survive?
They do a lot of, there are a lot of NGOs that are working with them. So that is the only way that they do get their livelihood and other opportunities.
So
But
non-formal education is there by the NGOs. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Children say this thing and the hobby classes and centers. Very important topic, most neglected and most important. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Simiji, yeah. Dr. Simi?
I think so. There's some internet issue at ma'am's end.
Yeah. Okay.
We can move with the next session.
Okay.
So now I request Dr. Savita Yadav to go on with her presentation.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Myself,
evening.
Dr. Savita Yadav. I'm assistant professor in GD Goenka University. And today I'm going to be discuss on the topic enhancing employee engagement for gender equity and organizational change, the intersection of transformation leadership and feminist foreign policy. So this relationship is very fascinating. And here we are discussing about how the principle of transformation leadership and foreign policies can come together to drive gender equity organization changes, and both work in a emphasizing of the inclusion, equity, and the empowerment. And we all know that a transformation leader is the one who can bring the organizational change, and when it will work with the feminist foreign policy, so it will be a great intersection between the both. I need to play this. Just hold. Yes. The major gap of research was that despite the adoption of the foreign feminist policy, little is known about the influence on the international organization culture. That it is applied externally, but when we talk about the internal organization culture, we found some gaps that we need to be studied. So in this, we need to be like adoption of the feminist policy is very in various sectors has been a very towards the equity and the inclusions. However, much is known. Yes, we need to explore the role of transformation leadership in with the internal environment. We need to investigate that how it is influencing the culture and what leadership style will be more suitable for that, and also trying to analyzing the impact of employee engagement on the organizational success and the institution prioritizing the foreign feminist policies. My literature review is considering the three aspects. First, the covering the principles of the FFP. The second one is focusing on the transformation leadership, which is the determinants of the shared vision, empowerment, intellectual stimulation. And the third perspective is the employee engagement, which is about the motivation, productivity, and the commitment. When we talk about the research methodology, the way of collecting the data will be through the survey and the interviews with the leaders, with the managerial level leaders, and the fewest case study of the which is associated with the foreign feminist policies and with the leadership approaches. And this will be going to be the chapterization of my research essay, introduction, literature review, research methodology part, finding and the analysis, and the discussion, and the recommendation of the final one with the conclusion. Now we talk about the impact of FFP on the just give me a second. Yes, the impact of FFP on the organizational culture. The implementing of the FFP principle with the organization requires creating a culture that portrays inclusive and the fairness. For instance, organization can design a progress to eliminate unconscious bias and the implement mentorship opportunity for unrepresented groups. This fosters a sense of belongingness and ensure that employees of all genders have equal access to resources and opportunities. And basically, the leaders who champions FFP values set the tone for the organization, serving as a role model for the equity and the accountability. Now, come to that how the transformation leadership work as a catalyst. It will work as a catalyst, means how it work as a change in the organization culture. So transformation leadership is more than just managing the people. It's more about the inspiring them. Leaders who have this style focus on motivating the employees, think creative, and take ownership of their roles. And they consider their employees as the asset so that they can work with them in achieving their own goal, as well as the achieving the employee's goal, as well as the achieving the managerial goal, and the achieving the organization's goal. So it encourages the innovative problem solving and providing opportunity for the professional growth. This approach does not just improve the individual performance, but also align the employees' efforts with the broader organizational missions, particularly when the mission includes the equity and the inclusiveness. What are the key takeaways of this research essay? Now we will be connecting the dots. So the FFP and the transformation leadership shares a common goal, which is that creating a culture for empowerment and the equity. So the synergy between both the policies, the FFPs and the transformation leadership, work as a catalyzed organization change by fostering higher employee engagement and the collaboration. However, when the potential is immense, researchers still needed to be quantify these impact and identify the best practices for the implementation. So organization trying to prioritize the framework which will not only achieve better internal alignment, but also make a strong impact externally. So now the last part is the conclusion part. So the conclusion, as we are going to wrap up the presentation, I want to highlight that integrating transformation leadership and FFP principle is not just a theoretical exercise, it is a strategy for sustainable change. Organizations must ensure their internal practices reflects the value they promote externally. By empowering the employees and giving them the equity, or embarrassing them with the equity, the fostering and about the fostering the engagement, we can build a future where workplace become a model of inclusion and fairness. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Savita Yadavji. I now request the experts for the comments.
Thank you, Dr. Savita Yadavji, for your presentation. I wanted to know what type of organizations do you have in mind for your survey?
Actually, ma'am, I'm having a mind in the automobile industry, because I done my PhD research in the transformation leadership and the employee empowerment in the automobile industry. So I want to carry forward my research with the policy of foreign feminist policy.
Which automobile industry? Because I have heard that Maruti has 40% women employees.
Yes, ma'am.
Which are the other ones? So you are in Gurugram.
Yes,
Are
I
you
am
in?
I will cover the all Delhi NCR units to conduct the survey.
So which are the automobile industries with a very high participation of skilled women employees? And they are not only from India, no? They are from several parts of the world, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I will work on that, because I am not having the particular clarity about that this parameter of the automobile industry. So I'm working on that. When I will complete the research essay, I will come with the answers of that thing.
No, there have been a couple of articles on automobile industries in Economic Times, in which they have said that they are highly competent engineers and skilled women in the diverse skills that they have in this plant, no?
Yes,
especially after the Maruti strike, no, where a lot of violence took place. Employers are also in favor of employing women engineers rather than the murder of manager which happened, no, couple of 10 years back. So that is also one of the reasons, to avoid shop floor level violence. They have adopted the policy of feminization.
Yes, ma'am.
That is, so you can even examine that angle.
Okay, sure.
Whether, because now you don't need a brute force for a production of car. Everything is highly automated. They are employing robo, and they are employing very extremely strong automated plants. So what you need is alertness and managing the technologies, no, which these women professionals are competent. I think even in Kerala, in Cochin also they.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very interesting, innovative subject.
Thank you.
All right, so now I invite Veronica Roy-ji.
Veronica, no.
Do I need to share my PPT? Oh, okay. Hello, everyone.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, Fizaji. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present. Today, I'm going to. My name is Tornika, and I'm a PhD scholar in Jawaharlal Nehru University, pursuing my PhD in Korean studies, and that's one of the reasons why I have chosen this topic. And right now, I'm in Korea for my field research, and the political condition of Korea is kind of not good right now. And so today I'm going to present on Women Cross DMZ, which is a women-led peace initiative striving for reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula. It was established in 2014 to mobilize women globally for peace in Korea through education, advocacy, and organizing. And it gained recognition, as you can also see in this picture, for its historic crossing of the Korean demilitarized zones, which divides Korea, South Korea and North Korea in 2015, involving two Nobel Peace Laureates, feminist icon Gloria Steinem and 10,000 Korean women, both from both sides of DMZ. And the foundational ideology behind Women Cross DMZ is the Feminist Peace Initiative, which aims to reorient US foreign policy from militarism and endless wars towards justice, peace, and collective security. It also actively opposes imperialism, white supremacy, and patriarchy, and implements its approach through grassroots education and engagement with policymakers. Next slide, please. So, talking about the problem, the Korean War and its aftermath are often studied through the lens of international relations, focusing on state actors, military strategies, and power politics. In this narrative, the roles of women, whether as peace advocates, soldiers, or negotiators, are largely overlooked. The prevailing focus on issues like comfort women or even wartime slavery has overshadowed the broader contributions of women to peace building, especially in Korea. And here lies the research gap. There's a limited academic attention on how initiatives like Women Cross DMZ, driven by women's activism, shape peace and reconciliation efforts of two Koreas. And I aim to address this by exploring three key objectives: how women's approaches to peace building differ from traditional, often male-dominated strategies, the intersectionality of Women Cross DMZ's activism, combining feminism, anti-imperialism, and anti-militarism, and the role and impact of Women Cross DMZ on inter-Korea relations. Next slide, please. To further guide this exploration, I have identified 4 research questions. What motivates Women Cross DMZ to engage in Korean peace building? What feminist theories underpin their strategies? How does Women Cross DMZ mobilize activism for peace? And what challenges hinder their efforts? For this research, I have adopted a qualitative methodology. I will be interviewing some members from Women Cross DMZ and employing feminist theories with human rights activist explanations. There will be case studies of significant events like peace marches and cross-border dialogues. And there will be archival research since I'm in Korea, I can visit the South Korean museums, and there are some memorials, especially on comfort women and also some women, how they participated in the Korean War. And the theoretical framework combines insights from Cynthia Enloe, who argues that militarization reinforces patriarchal attitudes, and Judith Ann Tickner, who highlights how militarized societies construct gender identities and that perpetuate inequality. And this approach allows me to analyze Women Cross DMZ's activism through both a feminist lens and the geopolitical complexities of Korean Peninsula. Next slide, please. My research contributes to the feminist peace studies by placing women at the center of Korean geopolitics, an area traditionally dominated by masculine narratives of security and conflict. It also sheds light on transformative potential of women-led initiatives in militarized societies. There are preliminary findings on 3 key themes. First is intersectionality, how women cross DMZ activism uniquely blends feminism with broader critiques of imperialism and militarism. Impact, events like DMZ peace walks have garnered international recognition and grassroots support, demonstrating the power of women's collective action and the challenges such as structural barriers like national security law and societal stigmas against women. Next slide.
Ronika ji, can you wrap up now?
Yeah, I'm concluding. In conclusion, Women Cross DMZ illustrates the critical role women play in fostering dialogue and building peace on the Korean Peninsula, and their grassroots mobilization and feminist advocacy not only amplify marginalized voices, but also challenge traditional hierarchical approaches to the peace negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I invite the experts for the comments.
Yeah. So this Women Cross DMZ, I think it's a very new dimension that you have brought in. We receive their emails very regularly. But what has been its reach in other nation states? Have they been able to reach out? Gloria Steinem, yes, she's an iconic figure. But
Yes.
again, she has taken some of very controversial issues, controversial stand vis-a-vis Syria, Iraq, and so many Islamic countries, no? Where
Yes,
it is becomes the white man's burden to
Yes, ma'am.
rescue Muslim women from the cruel Muslim man, no? So that kind of stand Gloria Steinem has taken. So to what extent, like you can see, that this particular movement is away from Islamophobia, no? Or
Ma'am,
is it
actually,
truly
may I speak now?
Yeah.
Ma'am, actually, what I have learned so far, and there's a very popular documentary also on this. Gloria Steinem was contacted, and there were some more like popular feminist icons for especially for the walk. But I think there are more events, and they're very active in the US. They are consistently talking with the US authorities and leaders to somehow bring peace. And on the other hand, in Korea, the founder of Women Cross DMZ, she was banned to visit South Korea. She was supposed to give this lecture just because she had, mentioned North Korea in a positive way. So because of national security law, she was banned from entering. So it's a very paradoxical situation. Like, they're very active in US, whereas they are not very active in South Korea, and some people actually look down upon their efforts. So I hope
and
this.
also suspicious also, no? Because
Yes,
they
yes.
digitally they are very powerful. All of them, they continuously you receive their link for the blogs and emails and all. But people, the to what extent they are truly post-colonial or critical of imperialism and the white feminist agenda, no? Of
Yes,
paternalistic concern for women from the colonies.
Yes.
So you have encountered that.
Yes, ma'am. Even ma'am, right now Korea's like just 3 days ago there was a martial law in Korea for about 6 hours, and I just read one of the post by the founder. They are organizing this huge protest to impeach the president in Honolulu. So they try to be connected, but as you rightly said, there are challenges, and I'm hoping to explore those through this paper and this opportunity, ma'am.
It's very brave of you to take up this issue. Very important. And new also,
Thank you,
new
ma'am.
knowledge we get. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Is Simi ma'am here for the comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. And very interesting. I concur with Professor Patel. And I just wanted to know what is the view. Have they brought out any communique or something or a release about the martial law and what? So then I heard from you that yes, they are planning a protest. But then again, it is out of the country. So that is also quite interesting. Dichotomous, I would like to say. So let us see how things proceed. But are you also trying to bring in the role of Japan when you're talking about the issue of comfort women? And is this country also going to figure in this topic?
Ma'am, for now, I don't think I will be bringing Japan too much, because Korea was also, when under Park Chung-hee's dictatorship, Korea also had comfort women stations to please the American soldiers who stayed after the Korean War, and there are about still 28,000 troops staying in the Korean soil. So it's very, if I bring it, I have to be very critical of it. So for now, maybe not, but like as I mentioned, if I bring it, I have to look both sides, not just the Japan, but also like how Korea used its women to sell their bodies to gain foreign exchange during the authoritarian.
I get your point. Thank you. Thank you.
Same with Philippines and
Yes, ma'am.
Thailand also. Yes, that's it. But these 25,000 US soldiers, are they there with the families or alone?
Ma'am, it depends, and because of Korea's low fertility rates right now, a lot of them actually having not
Marriages.
like Korean women are marrying US. So it depends. Some people are with their families, but not a lot, because they live in bases. So
These are the realities we are not familiar with. It's totally new knowledge. Yeah.
Nice, interesting topic.
Very
Especially.
interesting.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I request Dr. Shreya Pandeji to go on with her presentation. Dr. Shreya Pandeji.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm just trying to share this. Wait, stop other scenes. And do you want to continue?
I guess you're
I have
We are
already.
able to see. We are able to see your PPT also in a slideshow mode. So no problem.
Oh, so can you stop? I already shared it. Can you just cancel it for me? How do I cancel this?
Do you need to cancel? It's already there.
Do you want to continue?
Ma'am, I will be sharing if that's okay. You have
Okay,
shared
yeah.
the PPT. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I am Dr. Shreya Pandey. I'm an assistant professor at St. Xavier's College, Ranchi University, Ranchi. Yes, I'm based in Ranchi. So I will be presenting on making sense of the feminist component in the international security framework. So actually, I think this is a very, very preliminary dive that I'm trying to make into feminist studies. I have never actually written or dabbled with this, so I thought I need to understand this topic more. Can you please change? Can I change? Yes. So the research gap that I think I need to see is that a lot of feminism has seeped into the interstices of the international security framework, and but the impact assessment of this unique perception and orientation in the field of international security has not been dealt with adequately. So I would like to find out in concrete terms as to how feminism is impacting the discourse on security in the international sphere. Of course, with ma'am's guidance, I would know how far I can go and how deep I can delve into. But yes, I have made a preliminary attempt into understanding and trying to just follow the trajectory. Um, how do I change the uh, slide? Can I go to, yes, the objectives. So my objectives would be that I would like to understand the uniqueness and newness imbibed in the international security framework as a result of the inclusion of feminist theory, thinking, and concepts. So this will be largely a conceptual study which I want to do, and an effort to understand the correlation between feminist thinking and the adopted international security framework would be something that I'd like to understand, and I'd like to assess the degree to which feminist thinking has been thoroughly embraced by other international relation thinkers, the thinkers who are on the other side. Um, um, yes. So my research questions would be: what is the brief of feminism in the international security framework? What does it want to achieve? How are the different women stakeholders in combat zones affecting the feminist discourse within the international security framework? And how has feminist thought changed the discourse of understanding international security? So, roughly these questions I'd like to answer. Then, if I come to the literature review, this is a small snippet of all that I have gathered and understood actually till now. Of course, it is a huge ocean, but nevertheless, what I understood was that feminism and the discipline of IR, academic feminism, and the discipline of IR, they actually started their journeys almost roughly at the same time, and they had to contend with the war-torn 20th century. But IR, of course, made waves because so much was happening at Versailles, but then the role of women was largely neglected. As we can see, the 1919 International Congress of Women did not really get a lot of visibility. So, of course, an angst and a disapproval was being nursed by the feminist and gender scholars who criticized the core issues that IR was actually dealing with. Can I go on to the next slide? Then countries that are known to believe in values and who are they are generally considered to be good states, and they strive for global justice, and they promote international citizenship. So this is about integral humanism that we are talking about with the first set of countries. But then there are others. There is a certain another category which actually has congruent views on global politics, but they also assess things and they look into the roots and causes and catalysts of violence in communities and societies and institutions. Now, this is largely considered to be an alternative view, and feminism actually falls within this bracket. So, saying that this is a very distant ideological stand would not be right. And so, feminism is definitely a well defined departure from neo realist framework, but not something that is completely alien. As the 2015 United Nations review also states, that feminist foreign policy therefore includes whole populations. It appreciates diversity, it inspires comprehensive analysis, and leaves no one behind. um can we go on? Yes. So Anne Tickner, as we know, she said that states are deeply gendered hierarchies, and she also expressed her frustration regarding the fact that not many people were the IR theorists. Actually, they refused to engage with feminist theory, and this was largely because of their ignorance, and they were oblivious about the significant contributions made by feminist thinking. And another fear that seemed to haunt the IR thinkers on the other side was that if they engage in a serious debate with feminists, then they would be the subject of personal attacks for their motives. So Weber, in fact, has given it in written that when he made an attempt to engage in the relationship between institutional theory and feminist analysis in 1994, there was complete silence on substantive matters, and he was accused of manipulation and co-option. But not all IR thinkers think so. For instance, Keohane, he actually said that he was ready and he did engage in a constructive manner with feminist theory, and he welcomed the concepts on gender that have made space for themselves within the discipline of IR. The next
Shreya Pandeji, you have exceeded your time limit by around 2 minutes now. So can you wrap up?
All right. Just three short sentences. I mean, 3 points actually. So, basically, feminism has long been perceived to be intertwined with peace and non-violence, but then we see it to be outside war, and it is supposed to be on ethical lines, but it is so much inside IR because all the research is happening here. And we also see that women participation is recognized in various capacities. They actually play the role of suicide bombers, guerrillas, terrorists, as well as war leaders. So the role of women and gender politics in the discipline of IR is something that I would like to see as part of this paper. Next slide, please. Just quickly. tell you. Yes, and here I actually want to look at the aporia, that is a sex gender paradox, which is actually a contradiction, and it is not dialectics where we see a synthesis. So basically, this is about disrupting the trajectory. It is about emptying out its fullness and opening out its closure. Because of paucity of time not being able to say this, but this is so important that it is very evident that the sex gender paradox can never be successfully grappled with, and this is something that I'd like to examine as part of my paper. Next slide, please. Research methodology I'd skip, and I'll just straight away come to the last slide, which is the chapterization. So I intend to deal with the introduction, feminism and IR, feminist theory, thought and concepts, women stakeholders in the combat zone, and assessment of the inroads made by feminist theory within the ambit of international security, and conclusion. Thank you so much.
Now I request the experts to give their comments.
Comprehensively dealt with the issue, which goes into both concepts and theories. So which are the international relation theories you are going to focus on? And also I wanted to know that women stakeholders in the combat zones, which you have defined as in Iraq, Kashmir, and Rwanda. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. This was actually part of the theory that I was looking on. I did not think about zeroing in on them specifically, but of course, I was also planning maybe to look at Ukrainian women, what is happening to them as of now, because this would be some
But they are
uncharted
not in
territory.
they are in combat zone as a survivor, but they have not
Yes.
taken to arms. No, women in Ukraine have
Uh,
not taken to arms. Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
And
But
plus, their integration has also been very smooth, no, because they share the same European culture. They look like this thing. They are
yes, ma'am.
educated.
Actually, I heard some blogs from the Russian side, in fact, and there were these women, actually, some from Ukraine who moved to Russia, and some from Russia to Ukraine, and they were actually coming up with very, very unique stories because they belong to different background. One was an actress, the other one was working in a mundane factory. So how the war was impacting them, I don't know whether I mean, how I could include all of that as well.
But many of them migrated to European countries also. No? They
Yes,
got the
ma'am. Yes,
refugee
ma'am.
status.
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, ma'am, the Russian women have been very, very bold, and they've taken a stand. So
Yeah,
I didn't know about this, and I thought, I mean, everybody thinks that Russia is on the it's the offense is on the offensive side. So
yeah, and in that
these
statement on February 26, 2060 was extremely brave, no? They
yes, ma'am.
being
Yes,
in
ma'am.
Russia and critiquing the state. And I think they
Yes,
must
ma'am.
have faced a lot of backlash.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Such
ma'am.
a strong message on peace they have given. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. This,
So sorry, ma'am.
yeah, and about international relations thinkers. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I was actually just exploring the text, not that I was in particular looking at anything. I was just going through the articles, and as and when I was finding certain references, I was just noting them down. So just going with the flow, I didn't have a direction as such. It was a freewheeling exercise.
Yeah, but Professor Sanjukta Bhattacharya has also taken up the whole canvas of international
Yes, ma'am.
relations theory, no, the
Yes,
realistic
ma'am. That was
theory
a
and
very, very
constructivist
useful
theory,
session.
and yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
will go through that session again, ma'am. I mean,
The
twice or
videos,
thrice.
yes.
That's very
And
useful.
even she
Yes,
has
ma'am.
given readings, no? Readings also.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. All the
Thank you so
best.
much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now I invite Dr. Simi Mehta for her comments.
Yeah. Nice presentation, Shreya. Very good. Congratulations. My only comment is that if you could zero in on some case studies, some countries, as Madam has mentioned, that would really give a lot of meat to the entire study. So if that can be incorporated. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Ma'am, do you have any suggestion as to some concrete, I mean, some area which I should take up? Russia, Ukraine is one I'm interested in because I belong to European studies.
Yeah. So I
Maybe
think
I
that
could
would
look
be
at.
really good. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have
Yes, ma'am.
a perspective for Russia and Ukraine from the European feminists, no one from our area, no, like the Asians feminists and all, they have not studied. So I think that would bring it new knowledge. Because about Rwanda and Kashmir, lot is written from our perspective. But
Yes, ma'am.
the insights of the post-colonial countries have not come vis-a-vis
Yes.
Ukraine war and also
Yes,
both
ma'am.
the Russian and because Russian feminist statement was highly publicized, so we managed to get it. But otherwise,
ma'am.
what are the other dynamics we don't know about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can focus on that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And with this, we have the last fellow for today, Afshin Fatima ji. Can you go on with your presentation? Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Can you share my presentation? Okay. Thank you. My topic is youth perspectives on the role of women in foreign policy in Pakistan. It's a very simple topic. Can you change the slide? Okay. What I will do is I have designed around 8 to 10 questions regarding the youth opinion on women's politics and their involvement in foreign policy making in Pakistan. The research gap is that you can find
You're on mute.
You're not able to see her.
Ma'am, was she audible to you before when she was
Not audible, not visible. Even PPT is gone. Yeah. Now she's back. Yeah. She's back. Yeah, now she's back.
I'm really sorry, something happened with the internet.
No, I understand.
It's okay. You can start over. I'll start the time again.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So my research is about youth perspective, what youth thinks about women's politics and their participation in foreign policy. The research gap is that currently we don't have any opinion-based research on youth on this topic. The research question is that how does youth view women's role and participation in designing foreign policy and their participation in politics? It sounds very basic, but the thing is, I got this idea from seeing vintage photographs of Pakistani women in 60s and 70s era. The change came in around 80s. In 1970s, a dictator came, he brought Islamization, and then you can see the rising extremism in youth. The people who brought change in 60s and 70s, they were also a part of our youth. Now they are part of our old population, and the current youth is very much, on the leading side of extremism. Can you change the slide, please? Yes. The theoretical framework is of social constructivism, and according to this theory, traits like gender, class, color, ability, and sexual orientation, which are generally believed to be unchangeable and exclusively biological, are the result of human definition and interpretation that is influenced by cultural and historical settings. In simpler terms, whatever we see as reality is the result of our socialization. Next slide. Okay, some historical political milestones which are part of my literature review is the first is Pakistani Constitution, which gives equal right to women to participate in politics, which includes foreign policy as well. Then comes the era of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He brought a significant change for women. Before 1973, women were not allowed to join foreign foreign services corps. They were not allowed to become diplomats and ambassadors, primarily because the general perception was that women are not quite fit for this position. And a lot of Islamic states, for example, Saudi, Qatar, and like UAE, they will not accept female or women ambassadors. So in 1973, he changed the law. Then came Pervez Musharraf in 1999. He increased the women quota in parliament from 3 to around 17%, which was a significant milestone. And he also launched a National Commission on the Status of Women, which was an official report on the status of women back then. The current situation is that we have around 22 female officers from Pakistan, which are currently serving on different positions of foreign office. They are given benefits such as if they are married, then their husbands are also posted in the same city or in the same country so that their family lives are not disturbed. The trend is rising, but still not satisfactory. Next slide, please. Research methodology and significance. My target audience is youth aged 18 to 25, and the research survey sample is around 80, and the questions are around 8 to 10. They are subjective questions, and they will be judged according to the framework of the social constructivism theory. The significance of this research, as I said, is because since we don't have latest data on what our youth thinks on this particular subject is important. Why? Because the youth is the actual what you can say, they will be the founding members of future foreign service of Pakistan. If they are not in agreement with the women's participation in politics, then there is no use of any other thing or any other development programs being done in the name of women empowerment, because they are not actually willing to see the change. I am running this survey right now, and I have received quite a negative feedback. A lot of youth, they are coming up with religious reasons. They are saying, they are quoting Quranic verses and hadith, prophets saying that women are not supposed to be in a position of authority. But there is some hope of light as well. Let's see the final result when I'm done with it. Thank you. Any constructive feedback will be welcome.
Over to the experts now.
I think thank you for bringing out such a dichotomy that at one level, participation of women in the decision-making bodies has increased because the facilitating structures and systems have been created. 17% representation in the National Assembly, that is quite an achievement. But the youth is saying a very different story. Do you think that it is the influence of pan-Islamic resurgence of conservatism, and also the neighboring country Afghanistan, the way Taliban has restricted women's rights? Do you think that youth is influenced by that? Yeah.
It's a multifaceted problem. The current social media landscape is also filled with like extremist content. You can find youth bloggers and influencers bringing Islam in everything. From foreign policy to your domestic affairs, they will bring Islam everywhere. So our education system is unfortunately also designed in that way. So when you reinforce something, like when you are reinforcing gender roles by teaching students in their metric and intermediate education how a woman is supposed to be, what is a good woman, what is a bad woman, then you cannot expect them to support feminist foreign policy. They are not even supporting feminism, let alone foreign policy. A lot of my male students, I'm a senior lecturer, and they said like, madam, can I write that I don't like this? I said, yes, you can write. It's your personal opinion. You don't have to impress me. It's like that.
I now invite Dr. Sanjukta for her comments.
So you will also be taking into consideration the work done by Women Action Forum, CIMORG, and all during the 80s and the legacies they have left. And do you think that the younger generation of women, because when we did a study on a youth perception of youth, the women had a totally different response than boys, no? And it was a study of a diaspora community in Sweden and Indian youth, no? And we saw that the women were talking about gender justice and talking about gender-based violence and more independence and their attitude to marriage, where they expected companionship, while the boys, they were still in the traditional discriminatory relationship between man and women. So do you think that women would have a very different responses in your study? Young women.
Unfortunately, it's not as black and white. A lot of girls, they support the same patriarchal mindset as well. They are sitting in university, but they support the same mindset. They have a mindset that, okay, I will take degree and then I will get married. What do we have to do with feminism or foreign policy? So
Yeah, but
unfortunately,
within
this
the marriage, more dignity, equality, companionship, or no violence, verbal, psychological, emotional. Do they talk
Yes.
about?
Yes, their awareness has risen and they are going against joint family system.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, because this is
this
what
is
happened to our mothers and grandmothers. We don't want that life. That our young women in India are also saying. And that's why they said minimum economic independence is a minimum necessary condition. Part-time work, some cash we need to have to get more dignity and to have more voice in the family.
But when it comes to politics, they are very reluctant. They see it as a man's story.
Yeah. And it's a fear also, no? The mafia power, muscle power, money power, misogyny, all this. That is also very scary. Even those who are champions of social movement, they also hesitate to enter electoral politics. That has been the experience of women's movement in so many South Asian countries.
Yeah. The fear of losing everything, your family and your, as we say in Urdu, akhirat, your afterlife. If you disobey your... Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Very interesting subject and very good.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you, ma'am. With this, we have come to an end for the presentations.
Yeah.
I now request you to go on with the closing remarks for the day.
Yeah, I think we had a very...
VIBHUTI, sorry, before you get on to that, when do we have to submit the research paper and what is the length of the paper? Or does it have to be like a full thesis?
It's a 3,500 to 5,000. No? Dr. Arjun Kumar, you are there, no? Please. So 3,500 to 5,000. And the limit was the deadline is... Can you specify the deadline? IMPRI team? Hello, Shweta.
Ma'am, it is shared in the guidelines document if you can.
Yeah, but if you can once again tell.
Yeah. So the final essay submission is on Jan 11th.
Jan 11th. And the length also you have given, no? 3,500 to 5,000 for a chapter.
Yes.
Yeah, correct. That includes references. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, 11th January.
Okay, thank you. No, because I saw somebody had like chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Someone had presented
section. Yeah. Section.
Okay, because then
she should have written section.
Okay.
She should have written section.
That's why I got confused. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we had very interesting sessions, both of them. Where Dr. Nandita, how her presentation, it took up the current challenges with the feminist foreign policy is facing. And she said that it's still upcoming, like lot of rethinking and lot of discourses are happening, looking at the current geopolitical situation. And all of them emphasize the diversity, inclusiveness, gender inclusiveness, and also shifting the paradigm from national security to human security. WPS agenda was also critically reflected upon. And Dr. Simi Mehta, she also enriched the discussion by bringing in international relation theories, the patriarchal biases in it, and the alternatives that have come from the southern post-colonial societies, and also in the Indian legacy and the Indian debates regarding gender equality in the recent times that was covered. And I think all the 18 presentations we had from India, then Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Korea, like that she's an Indian student working on Korea. But the subject matters chosen for the dissertation, I think are all of them are quite innovative. We are going to have a new knowledge on the subject. And I think I personally learned a lot, not only in terms of information, but even in terms of perspectives and the interdisciplinary way of looking at the issue of feminist foreign policy, right from the way you look at the unpaid care work or the paid care work, women in care work, as that Bangladeshi scholar talked about, to the connecting micro, meso, and the macro realities with regard to international relations, feminist foreign policy, and the WPS agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would
and
also
thank you for your patience. We started at 4 o'clock. It is 8:45. Thank you very much, all of you, for being so patient, so attentive, and also qualitatively involved. It's not so all of them were so active.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would also like to invite Dr. Simi Mehta for her closing remarks. I don't think so. She is
not
with
able.
us. Okay.
She's
So
in
with this,
lunch.
I'll proceed with the formal vote of thanks as we conclude day 8 session of Feminist Foreign Policy Fellowship, an online international winter school program, a 3-month immersive online introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program. I, Fiza Mahajan, visiting researcher at IMPRI, would like to express my gratitude on behalf of the Asia Foundation, New Delhi, IMPRI, Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies, and IMPRI, Gender Impact Studies Center, New Delhi. I would like to thank our chair, Professor VIBHUTI Patelji, and the experts for today, Dr. Simi Mehta and Ms. Nandita Barua, for taking out their valuable time and for their thought-provoking insights on the topic. Also, I would like to thank all the fellows who presented today on diverse perspectives and topics. We would like to thank all our participants who raised important questions and contributed to the thoughtful dialogue that is essential for this fellowship. And we look forward to seeing you all on December 13th for the final and last session for this fellowship. And I thank you all for your engagement today.
We are again meeting on 8th. There
Yes,
are 40 present. We have covered only 18 presentations.
Yes, ma'am.
We have
That
42 presentations
on
to
Sunday,
cover.
we are meeting for the presentations. On December 13th, next Friday, we are meeting for the last sessions that
You
we
are
have.
also given the choice to choose between the 2 dates. So 42 of you'll have to choose which day you want. So even that has been shared in the WhatsApp group. So we meet on Sunday, 8th of December at 3 p.m.
For the presentation. Yes, ma'am.
Presentation.
All right. So I thank you all once again, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiza, moderating the session for such a